On Gypsy Tales, joining us today, we have Bud Feldkamp, we have Laurie Wilson from Glen Helen.
We thought, well, we should contact the AMA and maybe run a National Pro Motocross.
How was it received straight away?
Really good. It was 1996. It was very well received.
Mount St. Helen was a cliff.
Let's just call it what it is. There's an issue between you and an issue between Davey.
Right now, all the money is flowing through the Coombs. We need to rethink the business model of motocross.
They were supposed to cut to live TV here. They couldn't cut to it. There's like a lot of confusion.
I made a deal, shook hands with Davey Coombs, and this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. Screw you, we're not going to do it. It was very frustrating to me.
We're the ones that are getting hurt now. It's the people that lose.
I want to go to the National.
Well, I guess you do lose in a way then. Like everyone loses right now. You're going to force him to do something that he probably doesn't want to do, which is put on a Glen Helen National.
All I heard was Davey throwing me under the bus. It's hard for you to trust him.
This episode is brought to you by Yamaha and the all-new 2024 YZ250F. It's no secret that I've been a big fan of this 250F.
Where would you go right now if you want to win a Lights Championship?
Star Yamaha.
And in 2024, Yamaha has migrated their latest chassis platform to the Quarter Liter King. With the new chassis designed to give you flex in the right areas that allow for maximum feel through the turns without sacrificing stability. There's also an all-new Ergos package designed at slimming down the bike and updates to the rider triangle to improve rider comfort. The Yamaha still has that same exciting engine package that has become a modern icon in the 250 class, rocketing Star Racing to the lion's share of the last decade's titles. Combine this with Yamaha's Bluetooth connectivity for easy mapping and engine monitoring, and you have one of the best production 250s on the market today. To learn more, head to YamahaMotorsports.com or click the link in the description below.
I met a gypsy.
And you guys got time? No stress on time, or any time you have to be out of here? Or
No, we want to make it as productive as possible for everybody.
Awesome. All right, so on Gypsy Tales, joining us today, we have Bud Feldkamp, we have Laurie Wilson from Glen Helen, and I guess, I've found myself in the middle of a little bit of a situation. But in fairness to you guys, obviously Davey came on the podcast and then he was talking about the facility and the race, and I guess obviously that's one side of the story. So I think just in general fairness, I'd like to have you guys on for tell your side of the story. My history with Glen Helen. I love Glen Helen.
Great.
So I just want to make that abundantly clear. I am such a big fan of Glen Helen. I've spent a lot of Tuesdays, a lot of Thursdays there. I race World Vets, I race Day in the Dirt. So it's amazing. And what you guys have done over the last X amount of years is incredible. And there's been a lot of investment in the sport that you guys have done. So, and I think in this, I guess I'm team motocross. So I think that, you guys can see it in terms of the feedback from people. It's like, we want a national back at Glen Helen. We want something back. And then there's riders that want it back. And
Right.
So I'm that guy. Like I guess my position in this is to try and speak as that guy that is like, okay, we love Glen Helen, we want motocross back there. Whether or not that can happen or will happen, I guess it's, wishful thinking in a sense. But to let you guys know, I have taken it pretty seriously to just speak to a lot of different people. Obviously, like Davey's got his story fairly well documented, like that's out now, like people have kind of heard his point of view. He actually sent me an email with something that's going to go on Race Ahead on Friday. So I thought I've got that pulled up. We can read through it later as well, just because it'll come out after the podcast. So it's probably only fair that you guys get to comment on it.
Sure, that'd be great.
But I called a bunch of promoters that are still in the series now. I really wanted to try and like understand the numbers and really get a gauge of like, I guess is it fair? Are people happy? Are people not happy? And so I guess for me, I hope if I'm pushing back against you guys at all in this, it's like I've just done a fair bit of research and I've spoke to a lot of people. So yeah, I really would love to see everything just be cool, you know. So,
Right. So would we.
Yeah.
And I want to express to you that we're an open book. You ask us anything you want to ask us or talk about. We can tell you because we have lived this for the last 40 years.
yeah.
We started at Glen Helen in 1985, and it was a dirt track. A dirt track. When I say dirt track, they were doing sand drags out there. And I was fortunate enough to get the lease from the county to lease this piece of dirt in 1985. And I thought it would make a great motocross facility. And the reason I knew that was in 1970, I raced as a young man, raced motocross there at a Royal Cycle Park.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember sitting in the van in the wind. The wind.
Yeah. We've all been there.
We've all been there. That 4-letter word, wind. But it was that was my first experience with the dirt at Glen Helen. And then in 1985, I said the lease came up with the county, and I was fortunate enough to get that lease along with another gentleman named Don Brown, who was into sand drags, and I was going to be a silent partner, and he was going to run it. He lived out there and put on sand drags. Well, I kept telling him motorcycles would be a good addition, and after about a year, the concessionaire that was selling our beer for us came to me and said, "Hey, Bud, you're not getting a fair count on the beer. He's snaking the money." And I said, "Well, I'll look into it." And so I asked for a meeting with him, my partner in the lease, and my attorney, and we had a meeting in her office. And basically, it was agreed at that time that he would depart, because we confronted him and. We gave him one of the tractors, and then all of a sudden I got the lease. So I had the lease, and there I was, and what to do with it.
So, what drew you to Glen Helen initially? Like, was it kind of I'm putting myself back in 1985,
Right.
staring at those hills as a motocrosser. Like, we've all had the experience out the freeway, you know, like building jumps, and California just has such a unique type of hill and like mountain, and I'm guessing you just saw it and was just like love at first sight.
Oh, it was, but also you keep in mind I wasn't going to be a promoter. I was just going to be a private silent partner with the sand drags guy. But in the meantime, I was racing Saddleback, Indian Dunes. I was racing Carlsbad. I was going there every Sunday. In fact, when that movie came out, called On Any Sunday,
Yeah.
I went to the premiere, and on the way home, my wife, who was a young wife at the time, said, "You know, Bud, they named that movie wrong." I said, what do you mean named it wrong? It's not any Sunday, it's every Sunday.
Yeah.
And she was so right. So we were really into riding our dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And so I was riding the Husqvarna 400 and going to Malcolm Smith's there in Riverside and having him work on it and telling all my buddies how great it was to ride dirt bikes in the hills, and that's what we were doing.
So, what was the earliest incarnation of it? It's just a practice track. Like, how was it always the track always in the same place?
No.
On the hill?
No, a Royal Cycle Park, which is basically the REM or the old.
That track.
Yeah.
That track. That was the original racetrack.
That was the
Okay.
original racetrack.
Yeah, right.
That was
And
original. The front part of the track was actually built. They had a sand drag track, but when Riverside Raceway closed in the early 80s, they wanted to bring, which was the Mickey Thompson races, somewhere. And so I think that was your first feat of building the track on that side. It was actually for the Mickey Thompson races that used to be at Riverside Raceway. I don't know if you remember those.
No.
They were the class ones when he raced it, 1 to 1600s and all that. Those were the first real races that rode on what is now Glen Helen.
When she says the front, you mean the side where the big hills are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the big Talladega turns.
Yeah, but none of that was there.
Okay.
No.
No, we had a little hill called Animal Leap,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
was above Talladega. That was our first hill. So if you have to go way back to the early 80s to see what Animal Leap was, it was straight off the start. You went straight up
Oh,
and
wow.
right back down.
Huh.
Yes.
And so when did you enter the picture at Glen Helen? Because I think if anybody that is watching now that rides Glen Helen now, you're probably like the staple person that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I was just scoring races for a couple other motocross promoters, and about 1988 I started working there scoring for another promoter that was running races there. It was Top Gun and Double Cross. They ran UTVs, or back then three-wheelers and motorcycles, and I scored. And then Dr. Verkamp had his manager at that time, which was Brian Church, approached me and asked me if I would come and help them with their first motocross series, which was Yamaha Dealer Series. And that was 1988. And that's when I started, just part-time, scoring races and help. And Glen Helen, like I said, we'd have 1 or 2 races a month back then and
Yeah.
a couple practices.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I add to, we all know Stu Peters. Well, when I inherited the track, I contacted Stu, and he said he would run it for me. And so he just started doing practice. He's the one that brought practice to Glen Helen.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to, everybody kept saying, we got to use the big hill. Well, the big hill was a big cliff.
Huh.
You know, Mount St. Helen was a cliff. It wasn't a hill. It was a cliff. And I asked the tractor driver, I said, could you go up there and make no way we're going to drive that tractor up there. No way. Well, it happened to my mother, had a boyfriend there, Dan, who was from Oregon, had been worked in the lumber industry in the mountains, and he had been a cat skinner, and he said, I can do that. The next thing I know, he's up the top of the hill. It's a cliff, and he's headed down, and everybody watched him come down that tractor. I mean, it was just awesome. But that's the genesis of Mount St. Helen, and that was approximately 1980. And it got named Mount St. Helens because that's the year that Mount St. Helen blew up in Washington. So that's where it came from, Mount St. Helen.
Wow.
So, and again, that was in approximately 1980. And so, as Lori says, we contacted the AMA. Well, no, then Roger came in and had some the GPs there, right?
Yeah, so the first big motocross races was in 1989 to Roger DeCoster brought in the USGPs.
Yep.
And back then it was a big, USGPs were a big deal. Carlsbad wasn't running them anymore, so Roger came in and ran them. And then that's when we had Animal Leap, and then actually we had the Cooper's Jump, which was for Guy Cooper, was a big attraction. So those were the first big major racers we did. I think Roger did them for 4 years out there.
I think so.
Yeah, from 89 to 91. And so that's kind of our first big races were back then.
And why did they stop? What was the...
They stopped. I don't know why they stopped, but at that time when they finished up, we thought, well, we should contact the AMA and maybe run a motocross, not motocross nation, but just a motocross, a National Pro Motocross, to get a sanction. So we contacted the AMA and we got a agreement or a sanction to run a motocross event. And it was our first national, and that was before MPG or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And we ran it, and AMA came out, and they were the sanctioning body, and there was Duke Finch, and he came out, and there was about 3 people came out from the AMA, and we put on a national.
And how was it received straight away?
Oh, really good. It was 1996. It was a nice, hot, miserable day at Glen Helen, but
What month would it have been in, you reckon?
I want to say the very first one. It happened to be in June, so it was just a warm day. But it was very well received.
Yeah.
Considering I don't think any of us. It was our first adventure at doing a big race like that. So
Yeah.
we did good. And a few years before that, Tom White had come over to us to bring the World Vets championships to us in 1992.
Yep.
So we had done that one and then got prepped for doing the first national in 96, which was with AMA.
And so the track that we all know and love now, when did that start? Like, I guess because it's been this evolving thing over time. Like the track as we know it now, and it's been very similar for a long time, and for good reason. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when did it kind of take that form?
Well, he could probably tell you the story about meeting Jody Weisel for the first time. But it kind of started in 1996 when we first did our first national, if you want to tell your Jody Weisel story.
So Dave Dameron, I'm acquainted with Dave Dameron. I knew who he was, and Dave knew who I was. And we're putting on the first race, and there was a gentleman there standing there when we're talking. I said, well, how do you guys like the race? Well, how do you like the track layout? And Jody said, it sucks.
I could imagine that.
Yeah. And he says, it's terrible. And I could feel the, hair behind my neck. I said, what? And Dave, Dameron, who was a friend of mine, pulled me off to the side and said, Bud, do you know who that is? And I said, no, I have no idea and he says, well, that's Jody Weisel. He buys ink by the barrel, and so he said, so I went back and I said, well, if you think you're so smart, I'm telling Jody this, I'll meet you out here next week and you design the track. I'll let you design the track, because we were having our national and he was telling me all the things were wrong with it. It was right-hand turn off the start. We're going parallel to the grandstand. We should be coming at the grandstand. All the stuff that Jody, does and he's opinionated about. And so I said, I'll meet you. Well, he didn't think I'd show up, but I showed up on the Tuesday. I drove out there in my car and out of my work shoes, which were my dress shoes, and we walked the track, and he told me everything should be done. And I says, well, can you help me design this from how? Oh, yeah, I'll help you. And so that's how the relationship with Jody and I came about. But it was almost started out to be blows first, but then when he realized that I was serious. I wanted to make an iconic track for the fans and the industry because I knew this was going to be something big.
Yeah.
And in fact, to that point, Malcolm Smith, who is a good friend of mine, I raced with Malcolm many times. He said, Bud, this is back then. He said, Bud, what are you doing out there? All that dirt and all that, because it wasn't a motocross. It wasn't Glen Helen motocross. He says, you're going to lose your shirt out there. He was a little
Yeah.
And I said, Malcolm, I think I can make something out here kind of cool. And he says, oh, you're going to lose your shirt. Well, fast forward 25 years, and we'd go to a party or something, and he'd introduce me to his friends. He said, this is Bud Feldkamp. He owns Glen Helen. That was my introduction, so he changed his mind. And but that took about 40 years to do that. We've been working on this thing for a long time.
Oh, yeah. And
it's a labor of love.
Oh, man, for sure. Like, you just don't do the amount of races that you guys do, like the commitment to practice, the way that there's so many professionals go there and test there. And, like, it is. And I've traveled all over the world. And I've ridden all over the world. And as far as a motocross track and a motocross race goes, I was last year. I had my family, my best friend. Like I just got married, so my wife was there with me, and we'd been training all year. We said at the end of 2022, like, hey, next year we're gonna do World Vets at Glen Helen, and we trained all year, and we flew together to do some boot camps and training and riding, and we had a group chat going all year, and then we get to the race. Or we all get to California early, and we spend 2 weeks riding here, and then we had an RV parked there for the weekend, and then we all raced 2 classes, and we did the Vet Motocross of Nations together, and I was like in tears at the end of it. Like I pulled off of my last moto, and it was so hard. Mm-hmm. Like it was just the track was so rough, and it was so physically demanding, and we'd put in so much work, and like I was emotional to finish it, So it's like it's the kind of place that can bring that out of a person, You know, it's special, and there's so much history that's happened there, and you know, you can't create that. Like that doesn't just accidentally happen. You know, that takes a lot of people working very hard to, you know, give people like that level of experience, you know.
And that's been our vision, and that's what we wanted to do. And I think that is part of maybe the friction that we've seen from the East Coast in terms of, you know, we can't do this. And I said, well, why can't we? Why can't we open up the pits? Why don't we have open pits? Why don't we have people in the infield? Let's make it the way motocross used to be. You know, and make motocross should be. It should be a fan experience. You know, let's have the riders go by and high five the people on the fans. Just let the fans be on the fence and wave their towels. All those things that are small, but they're endearing. I mean, they make memories. They make memories for a young. I think opening the pits is just a huge thing, and I really lobbied for that for a long time, and was just getting nowheres with that. But that's the kind of things we did, and Lori has been very supportive in doing that with me, and I think that's what caused a lot of the friction, I think, between the West Coast and the East Coast.
Yeah. And so how often would you ride Glen Helen?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I don't think I really rode it very much at all.
Really?
No, I was more into the desert. I was racing in cars.
Okay.
I raced the Baja 1000.
Did you? In a truck?
No, in a single Class 1 car.
Yep.
Won it overall with Malcolm. And Malcolm and I,
Wow.
1976 and 77. The Baja 500, we've won 3 times overall. Now, these are overall, so these are. It's not just winning the class. So I was really into that, and that's part of the reasons I think I got Glen Helen is because one of the supervisors called me up and said, Bud, the supervisor of the county of San Bernardino, he said, Bud, there's a lease coming up at RFB, and could be a racetrack. I think you know a little bit about racing. Why don't you bid on it?
Yeah, right.
And that's why I did. So.
And so how does the lease work? You get it for an X amount of years, or?
We get it for like 10 years with options, and and we got the lease in 85, and what are we in 24 now?
24, yeah.
We've been through a lot trying to get renew our leases. We last year, 2 years ago, was it, Lord?
2 years ago, so we renewed it.
How long for?
2037.
Okay, so we got time.
We got time. We're going to be there a while.
Yeah, okay, I love that.
Yeah, and this is county land. I don't own the land. This is county land.
Yeah.
But they want to put it to good use for recreation, and so we have to be stewards for the land. We have to deal with the county, make sure they're happy. We've got to make sure that our vendors are happy, and our riders are happy, and our spectators are happy, and all those things that go on, running a track, and it's a big business. Lori works 7 days a week doing it. She is the personification of Glen Helen. So that's a very important. That's why I wanted her to hear today.
No, I'm glad. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm glad.
She knows a lot more about Glen Helen than I do.
Yeah. Where did your passion for the sport come from originally?
My first motorcycle was in 1967, I think. A friend of mine bought a Honda 160, and I was in dental school, and he said, "Oh man, that bike's cool," because I never could have a bike. But in dental school, there was hills behind Loma Linda, and I said, "Well, I like one of those." And he said, "Well, I know where one is for $400. You can get one for $400." Well, I didn't have $400, but my girlfriend at the time, I convinced her. I said, "This bike is so cool. This bike is, if I could just borrow that $400 maybe from you, this would all I will ever need. This is the coolest bike." Anyway, she loaned me the $400.
Then he married her.
That's a come up. Oh, you married her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's unreal. So,
and I paid her back, I think.
Can I share? I got a similar, not the same story, but kind of similar. So, me and my wife, we just moved countries, and we've kind of going through it. And she's actually Russian, And so we got engaged before I like technically got engaged to her, you know what I mean? And so we just had all these costs of moving and this and that. And it was actually, I wanted to train for World Vets. And so I'm kind of, we moved to the new place, and I had to leave all my bikes and everything in Australia. And so I get there and I'm like, I really need a bike, but I need to buy an engagement ring and a wedding ring and all that. And my now wife is like, you know what? Just don't worry about the engagement ring. Just, you need a bike, you need to ride. So I took my engagement ring budget and I dropped $8,000 on a gas gas.
There you go.
And I bought a gas 450 and I trained every single day for World Vets. And then I think it was like the Friday before our wedding, I gave her an engagement ring. And so that's my.
She's a keeper.
She
Yeah.
is a
She's a
keeper.
keeper.
She is a keeper.
Yeah,
Like,
hang on to her.
honestly, I was so blown away, and I was just stressing, dude. Like, I was like, man, what am I gonna do? You know.
Yeah.
So similar story.
Yeah.
And so, just you loved the bikes from then on.
Well, yeah. So we were. I was into desert racing and cars because I realized, being a dentist, that I didn't want to, break my arm or shoulder. I broke a few bones already riding with my friends, and so with age comes the cage. And so,
I agree.
So I started getting into these buggies and race cars, and they, they are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This is before side-by-sides, which has really changed everything, but I was racing quite a bit then with Malcolm and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome, eh?
But I also been an entrepreneurial business person.
Yeah.
Dentist.
That's what I hear from my
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
I hear that you're quite a good businessman.
Right. I only practiced dentistry for about 10 years,
Yeah.
but then I owned some clinics, dental clinics, and have some other real estate holdings. And this opportunity at Glen Helen came to me, and I said, well, I can do that. And so that's why we started.
And
We lost money for about
long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
It was, but I knew the future was there. We
Yeah.
could do it.
Yeah. How much of Glen Helen was a business? Because you can have I guess, to speak of my own, right? This is a business. Like, we make money. Like, I have full-time employees. Like, this is my only income, but I wouldn't say I treat it all the way like a business. Like, there's a lot of passion still in it, to where I probably leave a bit of money on the table because I want to do things a certain way. And, so there's a passion and a love that takes over a bit of the business. I'm assuming Glen Helen's maybe the same. It's not like it's all about the money.
No, it's a passion project. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not a big part of my
Personal wealth.
No, not at all. I'm passionate. I want it to be something that I'm proud of, and the people I'm with are proud of, So, and I wanted to give back to the sport,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
give back to the fans and the racers, and all those younger people coming up, because I want them to have the experiences I had.
Yeah. What's your favorite memories from Glen Helen over the years?
Well, that's a tough one.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of them. Yeah. Not racing, not riding. I was my favorite memories. I can't think of one right now. There's just a lot of them.
What about you?
Oh, Glen Helen, I think probably when I finally thought I accomplished the national, that was actually really successful,
Yeah.
where we could actually say we finally maybe got our act together and made it as fun for the spectators. Everybody had a great time and stuff. Those are that's not even the national, that's any event.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you sit back and you're like, oh my God, I think
We crushed it.
we crushed it. But
Yeah.
I was told by one of my people, there were several people that helped us at Glen Helen, that you never have a perfect event. So
No.
never pat yourself on the back that it's perfect. But there is times when I think, oh my God, I really, this really worked, and going back to like the World Vets, there was a few years ago where I was not happy with the World Vets because I felt like I was not making it perfect for everybody, because I was so many riders trying to do so much in 2
Yeah.
days. So that's my thing. My idea was to change it to the 3 moto format, 2 or 1 race each day,
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody got the full effect of it. So
Yeah.
now that I've done that, I'm a lot more satisfied with the World Vets. And, that might happen with a 2-stroke race because it's getting bigger and bigger. So I guess in my mind is always thinking, okay, well, how can I make each race better? And that could be anything from my Saturday motocross, which isn't that big, to the UTV races, or up to if we did have a national again, it would go make my head start turning like, how can I make this better? How can we make it better? And there's a lot of people behind Glen Helen, a lot of volunteers, a lot of people that help me do this. It's not just me. There's a lot of ideas that come across me every day.
It's kind of like a wedding.
Yeah.
When you put on a wedding, the crowd thinks it's wonderful. but
Yeah.
They don't
behind
know.
the scenes, it's
behind the
burning down.
scenes, like Lori knows, behind the scenes, this didn't work out or that
Yep.
worked out. So it's kind of similar to a wedding.
Yep.
We're putting on a huge party.
Yeah. What ones have you nailed, do you think?
Nailed.
Just been like, that was sick.
Two-stroke to me is probably one
This
of my
year?
this year.
It was great, wasn't it?
It was great. I
Yeah.
think that's one of my biggest accomplishments. That was a race Dr. Feldkamp stuck with me on when Four Strokes took over and we were doing the Four-Stroke Nationals with Wright Brothers. And then, of course, that kind of dissolved. And so when
Yeah, it
that
just became
dissolved,
every race
every
ever.
race.
Yeah,
So I said, well,
yeah.
I'm going to do a two-stroke national. And Tom was my idol, and Tom White told me, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And so I said, well, I'm just going to try it. And I asked him, I said, can I just try this and see if it would help? And yeah, we had 75 riders, got 150, got 225. And then that's when Kenny Alexander came to me and says, hey, let's make this the coolest race on earth. And that was like 5 years ago. And that's probably been, for me, one of my biggest accomplishments, that race has grown to where it's at today.
Yeah. Well, I was at it this year and it was like fantastic.
Yeah.
Track was amazing. Like the vibe was amazing. Like the support that it gets. And I suppose too, it's worth mentioning to you guys, like you've got the story about the guy that you met when you were riding around Australia,
Right.
and he said Glen Helen to you, and you're like, I own the
In the
track
middle of nowhere.
in the middle of nowhere,
In Australia.
and like you got like that's a track that has that effect on people. Like I would have known about Glen Helen as a 10-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up in a town in nowhere, Australia. So to have a place that's so iconic, and there's only a few of them, there's not that many motocross tracks that are just globally recognized. And I think you got Glen Helen, you got Redbud, like there's a few. But yeah, just to know that it transcends like a good track in California or a good track in America. It's just, no, this is like universally known as like one of the best tracks in the world. It's pretty wild. And I'm just not sure how much you guys are even aware of that,
No, well, Lori mentions the two-stroke. I just thinking of the Stopwatch National we just had.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what's the word I want to use? A crapshoot. We had no idea who would turn up or what. We thought
It was great.
good idea, but everybody seemed to have a great time. We had a full gate, and I think it's something that we're willing to try and do. And so, Lori and I have been a great team that way.
What have been some of the best nationals or like GPs that you guys can remember?
Yeah, I think, well, most of the GPs were great. We start with that. They were really great working with them. The problem was we just couldn't get the spectators because they always wanted all the top guys. And, there were some that were really great. As far as the nationals, I think every national was great. I like doing the national. It was stressful. There's a lot more that goes into it, and you have a lot of things to deal with. But I think all of them were good. There were some that were better than ever. I know the early 2000s, it was huge.
Yeah.
Huge there. And
What do you think that was? Like the Ricky Carmichael, James
Ricky
Stewart effect?
Carmichael, Jeremy was kind of going out, so was Emick, but it was, I don't know, everybody, they had the video games that just come out at that time, so everybody wanted to come out, and it just seemed it was the happening thing in the early 2000s. It was just huge, and that was when the riders actually participated a lot. They had them at the dealerships, and there was a lot more going on back then, and but after that, yeah, it's still big. I mean, motocross is. I mean, it's.
And I think the GP would have been bigger, but it was basically the U.S. Wouldn't participate.
Yeah, there was
US
not many riders. Huh?
In fact, we offered a $100,000 purse to any American that would beat to win the race, and that still didn't motivate them.
Who put up that money?
I did.
Huh.
Yeah. So, in fact, it was the casino, the
South Point.
South Point Casino, who was a big racing fan,
Yeah.
and he said he'll back it for 100,000 if an American can beat a European. Excuse me,
For the overall.
overall.
Yeah.
And they still didn't come out,
Yeah.
and so the fans didn't come,
Yeah.
and so that's what happened there.
And what year was that? What year was that? Was that 15?
2004. We did two in 2010 and 11, which were pretty successful, and then they came back in 2014 and then 2015.
Yeah. And so whose idea was the World Vets?
Tom White.
Okay. So
Tom
that
White,
was
yeah. Tom White started World Vets. Actually, it did not start at Glen Helen. It started at Paris Raceway.
Huh.
But they were started by Tom White, and then he offered it to us in 1992. He brought the World Vets to Glen Helen.
Yep. Okay. Because it's the 40th year this year, isn't it?
Correct.
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Tom is, he brings that event. He helped organize that event, started that event, and he took no money. He was all a labor of love.
He is a guy I wish I met.
Yeah.
His name
special.
comes up a lot, and John Anderson and his lovely wife.
Kristen.
They're just
They're great
amazing people as
Yes.
well. And yeah, you just hear Tom reference so much, and I think that it seems like Glen Helen has had over the last 40 years like a really core group of people that have like always really cared about it. And have like really like been through a lot with that facility too, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think the racetrack, Glen Helen, attracts those type of people that want to just volunteer their time and just be part of it and be the history of Glen Helen or the development of Glen Helen. I mean, we've benefited from that. I've benefited from that. And we like to, I compliment, there's so many people like the Gary Jones and
Jody Weisel
Jody.
and Carl Scanlon and Ron Lawson, a lot of those people. Even not Don Maeda, he's been coming out quite
Yeah.
a bit lately. You see
Yeah.
him almost every week. So
Yeah,
we have-
Kiefer.
Kiefer's always there.
Yeah.
Doug Dubach, who is our
Yeah,
Edison
Dubach.
Dye
Yeah.
recipient, so there's just, it's just constant. Kurt Nicole, all of them.
Yeah.
Kurt's, him and I worked together to get the Travis Pastrana Rallycross.
Yeah,
He brought
yeah.
that to us. So yeah, it's a lot of people, like I said, behind the scenes that help us at Glen Helen.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much is because you kind of can count on a crew being there every Tuesday or every Thursday. I can go ride Glen Helen alone and I'm never alone when I you drive through there's the boys right there, or
Yeah.
Kiefer's there, or so I think that's like another cool thing about it as well, is that there's just always someone, like you've always kind of got a friend there, it seems.
somebody to race against or practice against or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And it's always got, it seems like there's always someone from the family there
Right.
that you end up, kind of being able to ride with.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that just practice.
Yeah.
I mean, they never race, but they just practice, which I don't quite understand, but I do understand.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So that's maybe a interesting question in itself, is like being so committed to the Tuesday and Thursday thing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, basically, unless there's like a big event on. When did that start? How far does that go back?
From the beginning.
Right from the beginning, it's just been Tuesday, Thursday, and
It started Thursdays only.
yep.
Thursdays only, and we always were the Thursday track, and all the other tracks have respected that. So no other tracks are open on Thursdays, pretty much. And then we just kind of worked in Tuesdays, and they were kind of hit and miss. But then once COVID came, Tuesdays became the hit, and we were able to stay. We stayed open during COVID, the regional parks, because we're part of the regional park.
Yeah.
So we were considered an outdoor activity, so we were allowed to stay open.
Well, I explained that to them. You were allowed to have, 75 people?
Yeah, we were supposed to have 75 people.
Well, how many did you have?
I don't know.
Yeah.
My counter
The
broke.
counter was broken. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then the Tuesdays just kind of stayed on after the COVID.
Yeah. And so over the year, you guys, you're probably very unique as a track because of how much you have going on consistently and regularly. And I guess I'm not privy to what everyone's track does, but it seems like from my perspective that Tuesday, Thursday practice, there's Saturday REM, and then there's the two-stroke worlds, there's World Vets, there's Works Racing, there's Glen Helen 24-hour. So you guys are one of the unique tracks that really has a stacked calendar of your own and collaborated events that will run all year.
Correct. And that goes back to Jody. When I first met Jody and I was working full time, he goes, well, what are you going to be, a practice track or a race track? And I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. And he goes, I go, well, what's the difference? He goes, well, one, you just practice all the time. The other one, you want to race. And I said, well, what do I want to do? And he goes, you want to race. And I said, okay. So as putting the schedule together, I always made sure we had races. And we're lucky enough that I can run 7-8 events a weekend. So the promoters that come in that are smaller and stuff, we can make a deal that they don't have to lose money because I can have practice on one track, they can race on another track. Can have, so that's kind of why it's always busy, because I can do multiple events all the time. And like when Works or something like that comes in, of course I can't. But I'm lucky enough. Like last weekend, I think I had 5 different events going on.
Yeah, right.
So that's the benefit of Glen Helen, and that's just because he has so much property. He built the Lucas track with Lucas. That's another whole facility, and we just built the new little 50-65 track with the Stasic tracks, and then we've kind of redone the Vet track, which now we call the Arroyo track. So,
which is really good, actually.
Yes,
Yeah,
we've done
a
lot of changes in the last couple of years on that. So that's how it was at race. And so my job when I first started there was to make a calendar and have a lot of races.
Right. Well, it's hard to get on your calendar now.
It is hard to get on the calendar.
Yeah. I actually want to get on your calendar next year.
Yeah, and we
Do you
don't
have a
just
race?
Yeah, I got a race.
Oh, great.
Good.
Yeah, just call. Yeah, and
to
we're
Lori.
not just motocross too. We run mud runs. I ran. We have Tough Mudder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we run the Tough Mudder race, and most people don't know that, but we do run Tough Mudder, and there's 7,500 people that run those hills.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a great place, unless it's windy.
Yeah.
Then it's not. That's, I mean,
4-letter word, wind.
no.
We hate the wind.
Yeah, no one loves the wind. But, man, I've had some days there that I think it's actually also what makes Glen Helen really special is that it's fucking hard. Like, it's very hard to be good at that track. It's very hard to do motos at that track. Like, it's hard work. I'll get 20 minutes into a moto there and I got snot dripping down my nose and I'm choking on sand and mud and the hills and like I cartwheeled down Mount St. Helen a month ago at the Yamaha race. Yeah, it wasn't fun. So it's like, it's a real track. And when you go there, you've got to be prepared for it to be awesome for a bit, the wind blow up, turn it to a shitty, uncomfortable day. Like it's a hard place to be, like to have an easy time, you know.
Right.
And I think that adds to it as well. It's a really gnarly place, and you got to put your time in. You have to respect it. Like I got too comfortable, and I didn't respect that hill, and that hill flung me off it. And I think that also makes it super special as well, is that it's not nerfed, it's not easy, it's not, it's, that main track's not friendly, but it's like, that's what motocross kind of should be in a way.
In a way,
Yes.
You always remember your vacations. You remember the difficult times in a fond way later on.
Yep.
You don't remember the ones that you just sat by the pool and drank margaritas or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the ones you had trouble with, or your bike broke down or whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's super special in that sense as well, that it's just a hard place to, you're really never going to master it in a sense.
But not intentionally. We want to make it it just is. I mean, it's not intentionally do we make it hard, do we, Lori?
No, I
don't. I wouldn't say that it's purposefully hard, but it's just big hills. The dirt's always changing.
Exactly.
Like there's a lot of people on it. There's a lot of fast guys on it. Like it's just it's a real track. It's got big hills. It's fast. A lot of it's got kind of everything.
It does.
and it makes it a real track.
Well, that's if you know Bones Bankin from Pro Circuit, their
Yep,
big
yep.
tuner. When he was working for him, their riders were not allowed to come to Glen Helen until 2:00 in the afternoon on Thursday. He would not let them come out till 2:00 because he didn't want them to run the track until it was the roughest part of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And they won several championships that way, so I guess it worked for him.
Oh man, well, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I guess should we get into the national? Is there any other stuff that you guys got? I just want to give people that maybe aren't fully familiar just a real good scope of like why you do this, you know, what you're getting out of it. I guess a look into your love for the sport and your passion for the sport, and you know what you guys have done for the sport over the last, you know.
Well, I think, yeah, it is the passion because, and again, the last 40 years has been all passion. You know, it's not a money making thing. We want to make money so we can grow and put it back into the sport,
Yeah.
and also share it with the riders and the
Yeah.
teams and everything like that. It should, all the stakeholders should
But it should make money, right? Like
yeah.
it's a
It
business.
does. It does.
Yeah,
Well, it
like
has
it's a
to make
business.
money, yeah, to-
I'm never mad at people making money.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it's just
He puts a lot back into it. I don't think you see too many tracks that have a huge museum like we have,
Yeah.
or the Walk of Fame,
Yeah.
or I know promoters come and they're just so excited because we have towers with air conditioning
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we have regular restrooms. I don't know how big of a deal that is to customers that come in, but that is
No,
huge.
I can tell you, my wife appreciates it. You
Yeah.
know?
well, and there were many years where we lost money, and I would take money out of my other businesses to put it into Glen Helen, but I believed in it. But honestly, say the last 5-10 years, it makes a profit each year.
Yeah.
So it's
Which we want that.
yeah,
Correct.
no, and that was the plan.
Yeah.
But it can be a spark plug for the next generation. I need somebody. Lori's here. She's going to do it as long as I'm around, I think. Hopefully, I'll do it as long as she's around. But we need to look what the future is and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and who's going to take on that in the future? I have my son. He's a racer. He races off road,
Yeah.
and so he has an interest in it, and maybe we'll keep it going.
Yeah. Well, I hope it keeps going for a
Yeah.
very long time.
Yes.
I'd love to be able to ride there with my kids
Right.
at some point. And yeah, it's just a stable. It's so valuable to the industry too. Like when you talk of the Kiefers of the world and the MXAs, you know, the Josh Mosmans and like the people that like it's such a it's an asset to the community, and it's an asset to the sport in terms of it provides like a canvas for people to work and
Correct.
for teams to ride and for magazines to be, you know, do their testing and for content to be created. And, you know, like it is such a important part of like the Southern California, you know, industry, but just the industry at whole, you know,
Right.
like Pro Circuit, they're right around the corner, and you got Troy Lee Designs, and you've got like, if Glen Helen wasn't there in the capacity that it is, like that just would be the biggest hole, not just in Southern California motocross, but just in the industry. Like it'd leave a huge hole.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, most of the research and development is done at Glen Helen
Yeah,
for all manufacturers.
yeah,
They
yeah.
rent the track pretty much. I'm pretty much booked 90% of the time for them to do R&D.
Yeah, a lot of people might not actually know that. Like KTM has their day basically, and Yamaha has their day where they go out and do different R&D. So, yeah, it's just such a huge asset to the motocross community, you know.
Yep.
So let's talk about the national then, and I don't know where would you like to start with it?
Well, I would start. I like to start with the fact that I saw the podcast.
Yep.
You know, and I saw that podcast, and I listened to that podcast, and I realized that the whole story is not getting out there, and the story of what really happened is not being told, and it needs to be told because the industry needs to know about it, and it's not just about what was said in that podcast. And so that's what motivated me. That's why I'm here today, in a way, to tell our story, and so where does that start? It starts with,
Well, I guess what were the particular points that you think Davey misrepresented or got wrong?
Well, I can go into them. But we need to. Well, first.
Set the stage first.
Set the stage. It was asked, well, when did MX Sports take over? 2009. Correct? 2009, Lori? Help me with this.
Yeah, 2009 was when that was MX Sports after we were no longer the MPG.
Yeah.
Which happened to be when AMA put all of pro racing up to bid.
So we need to talk about MPG first.
So should we read the thing that Davey's going to put,
Sure.
and then you can
Sure.
that just fully. I guess that I just want to be as fair as possible.
I agree totally. Yeah.
So if we pull this up, okay, let's actually before we pull this up, I just want to play you something.
I was just telling somebody the story today that Glen Helen is probably that and Unadilla, but Glen Helen is probably at the top of my list.
Yeah.
It's not. It's the top for a national track. Now, the way it's prepped during the weeks, on Thursdays and things like that, it is what it is. It's a practice track. But when they prep Glen Helen to be a national track, I think number one, it needs to get put on the list for sure. And it was one of my favorite places to race. That's for sure. I don't know. I mean, it's an iconic place, number one, and number two is it takes you got to be tough, and the track, the way it develops, but also it's super wide, it's fast, but it also has the tight sections in the middle of the track.
Elevation.
I loved racing Glen Helen. Yeah, I honestly really did. And partly because I was good there.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm still good there now, and I don't ride.
Dark. You don't. To be fair to Dark, it's Glen Helen's its own animal too.
Yeah.
There's nothing like Glen Helen. He's from West Texas, so
East.
Yeah. Thanks, Rich. Thank you, man.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Richie.
Jacob's
So
got a.
that's the voice of Ryan Villapoto, one of the best champions we've ever had, one of the best riders we've ever seen. He still rides out there. He did the two-stroke race. I raced out there with the Yamaha race. So I feel like that's a very great representation of, and you'll get pros that say they hate it, but because they suck, they're,
Right.
Probably,
Exactly.
which is fair. But I think that's like the general feel,
Right.
So I think it's important. I don't know how connected you are to what's been going on in terms of the back and forward, but I really feel like that's a pretty great representation, and it couldn't come from a more credible person into just how we all feel about this issue, as it pertains to the national especially.
Yeah,
Correct.
and I think as we just been discussing here, this came about because of Lori's vision, my vision. We didn't inherit Glen Helen as it is now. We built it. We worked on it. We have 40 years, and all those little things we did result in we do have an iconic track. It's known worldwide, and we're very proud of it. But we want it to continue that way. But sometimes I get the feeling that Bud Feldkamp's just a businessman. He inherited it, and he's trying to milk this track that he got.
Yeah.
No, it was built from ground up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's also why I wanted to just start with a little bit of the history.
Right.
I'd never met you before we spoke on the phone, and I never really knew. And I'm a fan and a rider and an active participant of at the track. So
Sure.
that's why I wanted to
Right.
I guess give you that chance to talk about that, because you can't have a track like Glen Helen without people that really care about it,
Right.
and are doing it for certain reasons. All right, so then we'll go to this. So I'll just read this. So the podcast that I did with Jace McAlpine for Gypsy Tales went up last week. It was a deep dive into a lot of the things, including the whole Why No National at Glen Helen saga that dates back to 2010 when Bud Feldkamp cancelled his national in favour of hosting an MXGP instead. The late Tom White got us back to the table together in 2014, and Bud even awarded me a special Glen Helen Award of Excellence trophy during opening ceremonies for my passion, wisdom, and leadership to grow the sport of motocross in America. I thought we were doing pretty well, but then Glen Helen bowed out of the series again in the fall of 2018 after we announced our schedule at the 18 Motocross Nation, and at least this time he asked to be taken off the schedule rather than informing us by fax. You see, he again had several non-negotiable terms that he would not budge from. It was an unfortunate turn of events that reverberates to this day. Glen Helen is a badass track with some very loyal fans, and I hear them often. But there is one thing that keeps coming up in the comments that is simply not true, and that is the notion that I somehow undermined the NPG, National Promoters Group, when the AMA decided to sell AMA Pro Motocross, as well as all of the other AMA professional racing series in 2007. The AMA invited bids on their various professional series, including road racing, flat track, hill climb, etc., through a formal request for proposal process. There were many bidders for the MX series, including Ustream, the company that ran the FIM World Motocross Championship. The MPG also made a bid. At that time, the MX series was being managed by the NPG. The NPG was a peer-based group that met annually to share the best practices, and develop policies to bring uniformity and consistency to the 12 otherwise disjoint events. It was a cooperative that my dad had pulled together in 1998 to help align all of the events for sponsorship and television as a way to keep up with what Supercross was doing and stay relevant. Unfortunately, my dad passed away 6 months after forming the group. Fortunately, the NPG continued to work together in the years that followed under the guidance of John Ayres and my sister. So John Ayres comes back around, I'm sure, in the discussions that we'll have. But the NPG was not an entity with officers, assets, or employees, only good ideas. And there was a real fear that it would not win the bid. So MX Sports was invited to throw its hat in the ring with the express knowledge of every one of the other promoters, in the hopes that if NPG didn't win the bid, there would be another oar in the water that would keep the series in American hands. I put together the MX Sports bid. John Ayres, who was the NPG's operations director at the time, wrote up the NPG bid on behalf of all of the promoters. In the end, it was all a moot point because both bids were turned down. Jim France and the Daytona Motorsports Group, the DMG, ended up buying the whole thing: MX, road racing, flat track, supermoto, and hill climb. The deal was announced at Daytona Bike Week in March of 2008. The France family owns and operates NASCAR, but Jim is an old flat tracker and road racer himself, and he wanted those forms of motorcycle racing to grow. AMA Motocross came in the bargain, and while motocross wasn't DMG specialty, they did not want it to be swallowed up by Supercross. They did not want it to be they did not want Ustream to expand with 3 of the 4 FIM rounds in America that it had its eye on. It was DMG that selected MX Sports to manage the AMA Pro Motocross Championship. Mr. France knew my parents from back in the day, and he knew that we were heavily involved in every level of the industry, including professional and amateur national event promotions and operations, as well as national and international media platforms. So MX Sports Pro Racing was born. So that was a different company to MX Sports, I'm pretty sure. So MX Sports Pro Racing was born, and in 2009 took over the helm of the series with all of the existing tracks which were in the NPG. We also agreed to pay a sizable rights fee, paid in part by each of the promoters in lieu of the sanctioning fees that previously went directly to the AMA. I bring all of this up because in 2012, 2 years after he cancelled the Glen Helen National the first time, and after MXGP failed to gain any traction here, Bud Feldkamp did an interview with Motocross Action where he implied that MX Sports, lo and behold, in the midnight hour, snatched AMA Pro Racing from the MPG, which is simply not true. DMG could have chosen to manage Pro Motocross on its own, but it did not. It could have chosen to work with 12 individual promoters, but it did not. Instead, it chose to work with MX Sports to manage the series with the expectation that we would continue working with the MPG promoters, which we have, except for 3. Steel City. Yes, we got rid of our own national for the sake of the series because Pennsylvania did not need 2 rounds 60 miles apart. Freestone in Texas, which was simply too hot to draw fans in the heat of the summer, and Glen Helen. While the other promoters approved the transition to MX Sports Pro Racing, managing the day-to-day business operations of the series, marketing, promotion, sponsorship, contracts and activations, TV packages, rules, enactment and enforcement, officiating, rules management, etc. Mr. Feldkamp would not. So he quit not once but twice. Glen Helen Raceway does not have a national today because they do not want one under similar terms to every other track on the schedule, including High Point and Ironman. Like I said on the show, Bud Feldkamp wants a big race, but he doesn't want to be a part of the big series like AMA Pro Motocross. So I guess that's everything from Davey's end. So then I guess I'll just give you guys a chance to, I guess, explain your side.
Let's talk about the MPG then. Davey Coombs Sr. approached me, I think it was in 1997.
Yep.
Is that what it was? 97, and we already had a motocross event. And he said, we're going to form an organization called the NPG, and would you be a founding member in this organization? And I said, well, what is it? Well, it's going to be 12 tracks, and we're forming this so we can leverage ourselves and have the power of a series, and because the AMA is, who knows where it's going to go. And I said, count me in. I'll be part of it. And so we had the first meetings. I don't know where they were at, Laurie, but Kerry Coombs was going to be our corporate counsel.
Yep.
And I think I don't know who the CEO was at that time. I'm not sure. We didn't have a CEO at a corporate counsel, and Davey was involved. But anyway, we went along and we were improving the series. And then the AMA, this is from my perspective, the AMA formed a new organization called AMA Pro Racing. And because I think they saw how well we were doing, and they decided, well, they're going to be in the promotion business. They don't want to just be in the sanctioning business, which I always thought the AMA was a sanctioning body, but now they wanted to be a promoting business. And
Which isn't good, really.
No.
Like, you don't really want to be judge, jury, and executioner,
Right, exactly. And because being the AMA champion of the U.S. meant something, you'd be AMA flat tracker, AMA hill climb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that meant something. You had that credential. They were the sanctioning body.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, they wanted to be the
Promoters.
The promoters, AMA Pro Racing, they called it. Excuse me. And so then we got word through Kerry Coombs that the that the AMA Pro Racing had realized that they can't make it work, and they're going to sell AMA Pro Racing,
Which is everything.
which is
Which
everything.
is flat track, road racing,
yeah, everything.
motocross,
right,
supercross, the whole deal.
right. And she had an inside track because she had contacted them, and she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to they were going to disclose everything. Excuse me. And we were going to buy it. The MPG were going to buy it. John Ayres gave us a budget of what we think we should spend, and they were going to go and have this meeting, and I think it was in
Budds Creek,
Creek.
at Motocross
And
Nation.
Laurie was there, and I wasn't there. So Laurie, you can share how it went.
So we went in and did a proposal to Dingman had just taken over as president of AMA, and he had his chief financial officer there, and we did a whole presentation. John Ayres did a wonderful presentation on behalf of the MPG, and so we were on the assumption, this will be really impressive, that they'll just take us on and let us run motocross, and then they can decide what they want to do with the rest of their pro racing, because they did not have Supercross. They weren't going to give Supercross away, so it was just the other ones. And then at that point in time, we were told that they were going to RFP us. They were going to put us, the whole thing was going up to bid, and it was a shock to all of us. I mean,
What's an RFP?
Meaning they're going to
Request for proposal.
to have it
Yep,
go out
sorry.
to open bid to anybody.
Yep.
It was an open bid. So it was a big blow to all of us, and that really caught Carrie Coombs off she wasn't expecting that at all. None of us were. And so after that, it kind of just, it was a big air bubble that just popped on us that, we weren't going to be these 12 promoters. Where are we going to be at?
Yeah.
And so after Budds Creek's Motocross Nations, we went back to the drawing board again with John Ayers and Carrie still representing us at that time. Carrie
Yeah.
put together a proposal to bid on the MPG, and so for the MPG.
Yep.
And then at that time, they were worried about Ustream coming over to United States, which would probably limit how many nationals there
There
would
actually
be,
were, yeah.
would be, and I kind of understood that part. And so we put a bid together, and at this point in time, I don't have the paperwork, but we did put a bid in, and so I
And
felt
we were represented by our corporate
our
counsel,
Carrie Coombs.
Gary Coombs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where
And how did you feel about that?
Well, I felt because I'd been dealing with we'd been the MPG for several years at that point, the National Promoter Group, and we had all become very kind of close. We would go to
Yeah,
other people's
personally,
nationals and help people, and we were all kind of we were an organization that worked together as 12 promoters, so we all knew each other. So I felt very confident. We met maybe at least once a year, sometimes twice a year at meetings. We had, would go through everything for the year. So it wasn't like we were just a whole bunch of yahoos and we never met.
Yeah.
We had organized meetings all over the place, different tracks each year. So,
And Carrie Coombs ran the meetings
Yeah.
basically.
yeah, she was our,
They had 2 tracks at the time, I think, and so it was natural for them to, and they had the relationship with the AMA, so it was natural. They were running the meetings, and she was our corporate counsel.
Yeah, and I guess when you look back at Davey Senior's history,
Yeah.
too, he's such a long history of
Correct.
being one of the main promoters, I guess you could
Oh
say.
yes, I mean
Yeah,
In fact, I remember him saying to me, "Bud, Glen Helen should be part of this group." And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." He says, "In fact, someday we might even want you to be the CFO of this group. Who knows?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, that's here or there." But anyway, it's a very legitimate organization
Yeah.
that we were going to take motocross that was fractured and bring it together as a series. And and he died a year later.
unfortunate.
And how was your relationship with him personally?
Well, I only met him once.
Okay.
I only met him once.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one.
And so, I guess, what's your feelings? I feel like Bud's fairly open about his feelings towards Davey, but from anything I've ever heard from Davey, he always makes sure that when this topic comes up, to speak very highly of you.
Oh, I have no problem with Davey Coombs.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
no, I respect, he has a lot of businesses. They do a lot of motocross races. I mean, to me, it's a business deal, and it comes down to our ideas of what happened and his ideas. But no, I like Davey. The Coombs
Yeah.
family, all the promoters that are out there. There's not one that I can't call up and say,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
I respect him because I run races every week. They run races every week, and it's not easy. So I respect every single one of them. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that isn't
Yeah.
really. I think the person of Davey is not really.
Yeah.
That's the issue, and I mean, I talked to him just recently.
Sure.
And
Davey's a nice guy, but
He is.
but reality is here. There's a fiduciary responsibility. If you're the corporate counsel of an organization, that you have a fiduciary responsibility to represent that organization to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And you can't, if something better comes along, you can't say, "Well, oh, this is a better deal. I'm going to do this on my own."
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not the way business works. I mean, that's people go to jail for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where I lost confidence when all of a sudden I found out that what we had worked on, all of a sudden went to the Coombs family, who was our corporate counsel, who was leading our group, and it didn't smell right. It wasn't right. And so, yeah, I was opinionated after that, but I said, well, I don't want I'll have to go along to get along, and so I'll just ask for some things that I know are important to the fans and me at Glen Helen. But and I was willing to do that, and I've done that over the years. But now I think it's time to speak up.
Yeah. And so, all right, so let's just pick up where we left off. And
So the MPG put their bid in.
yeah.
And then
And
Dave,
did you see the bid?
Yeah.
Like you saw the
I
proposal,
saw the proposal. Yeah.
and you were happy with it.
Yeah, we were all agreed. Again, we were a group, so it was
Yeah.
the majority of the vote. And I think back then you laugh, but I think we're still doing faxes more than emails. But
yeah.
But anyway, so it was all agreed upon. And then I know Davey called me and just said that again they were a little worried about Ustream coming in and taking the bid, which is kind of said in his which that is correct. So he said that they were going to put a bid in as their company. And I said, well, that sounds kind of weird. I said, what benefit is that going to do us as promoters? And he goes, oh, don't worry. It will all, we probably won't get it, but it's just a safety net so that there's 2 bids in there and all this. And I said, okay, it was kind of like, okay, I was driving. So this sounds okay. I guess we'll just let it go that way. I wasn't sure. I just figured the highest bid would win. And
So so because I guess in that statement that he made, he's saying that it was agreed upon that there would be another bid.
I think it was agreed. Well, he would call each
not
of
by
us.
the MPG.
No, it was just agree. He called probably each individual promoters, and like I said, I didn't disagree with them.
Okay.
So I guess say yes, I did agree, but it wasn't on a proposal like we had for the MPG.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe in our talks or whatever, I never really thought that there was a group out there that wanted all of pro racing. So I just
Yeah.
thought I heard hearsay that there was Mike Kidd wanting flat track, and there was somebody else that wanted this. So
Yeah, yeah.
I just figured it was just going to go.
It was going to get piecemealed
out.
Yeah.
The last thing I was thinking is one organization coming in and taking all of pro racing.
Everything.
So I don't know about his viewpoint, but when I heard that GMG got the whole thing, that was kind of like, kind of mind boggling to me, because I was like, why does a NASCAR company want pro race, motocross racing or, so that to me was kind of strange. And then
But they did get it.
they did get it. And then it went back. Go ahead.
Well, they did get it, but our corporate counsel, people representing us, should come back to say we lost the bid. What do you want to do? Instead of that never came back to us. So it was told.
But what could you do?
What could we do?
Like if you lost the bid, so you just said they never come back to us and said, what should we do?
Well,
So what could you do?
Because they came back to us and they said, bad news, we lost the bid. Good news, we got it. Coombs family got it. All in
Yeah.
the same day. That was all happened all in the same day, or within a couple of days.
Yeah.
So you could have we could have had a meeting and said, well, how are we going to address this? How are we going to approach DMG? That we are. We didn't have any of that. It was all kind of again, there's a fiduciary responsibility that somebody has if you're going to represent an organization, that you have, and an attorney should really know that. Attorney would, if anybody would know that, it would be an attorney.
Yeah.
And this attorney was, our we have a corporate structure here where she was CEO and counsel for this group.
Is that in my thing?
No, but I have it.
Yeah, because I guess this was the part that I really wanted to drill into.
Yeah.
Because I can see your point. Like I can see your side of this and how it would look, and I had conversations with Davey. I had conversations with other promoters, but I can also see that. I can also see a company giving everything away for like a lot of money over essentially a non-profit organization that was. So this is
Here's corporate structure. That was the MPG.
So Bud's just handed me the corporate structure. So you've got MPG corporate structure, Hangtown, High Point, MX 338, Budds Creek, Redbud, Unadilla, Thunder Valley, Washougal, Spring Creek, Steel City, Freestone, and Glen Helen. So pretty much everyone's still on there, really,
right.
except for Freestone, which I always thought there's the point that people make too. I'll just keep reading. Yeah. So Kerry Coombs, and then you've got Glen Helen, Hangtown director, Amy Ritchie, Redbud, and David Claybor, which is from
Lakewood.
Okay. And then MPG managing director, and then it kind of like split it off the roles and responsibilities. So there was like a structure there in place for sure.
Correct.
And we were one of these tracks, and we were being represented, and the MA was gonna unwind, so we had our team there, but our team kind of weren't a team player at the end there.
But so, can you see the decision that AMA made to sell it to Daytona Motorsports Group as like why they would do that over like essentially like a non-profit organization?
Oh yeah, correct. I do understand that point.
I don't think we're a non-profit, were we?
No, I'm saying he's a.
Well, was it like a registered business at the time?
DMG Group?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I didn't.
No. Sorry, not DMG. NPG.
Yeah. Well, we had a corporate structure.
But was it like a business and a?
Yeah, we'd have to do. We'd get income. We would have to file taxes just like anybody else with the income coming in from the NPG. Carrie sent us tax forms, and like I said, she was our counselor, and not that we paid her a lot, but she did get a sum of money from the MPG, so she was paid for her services to be our counsel for the MPG when we did the races back then. So to me, it was a corporation or a company, and they did have a business structure, and we had business meetings.
There was no MX Sports at the time when they did this. It was just the Coombs family. And the MX Sports came in about a year later.
So when was the meeting that they lost the bid, roughly? Do you think it would have been?
Well, the bid went up. Everything was bid on in... So our last national, 2008, and then the bid went out. They became a corporate in 2009.
Yeah.
In 2009, the bid went out in 2008.
Yeah.
And we go. I just want to go back to
right there.
Yeah, go back to DMG Group. No, I think I wasn't. I agree with AMA selling to DMG Group. I never thought that was the issue. I just thought we were never like. I was not ever in the fact that the corporation was going to buy all of the entities. I don't know if all the promoters felt that way. I was just shocked when we heard that it was only one group.
Yeah, which, I mean, and it makes sense that they'd do that. Like
Correct.
You've got the guy that owns NASCAR and he comes in with a bunch of cash and just wants to take the whole thing. It makes sense to me that they went and did that. I can definitely like see the frustration, or I could see how it could potentially come across. But then I also can see that if I was a business, like if I was the DMG, I'd just be like, fuck, we just need one guy. Like we just need one thing to a company that can run this. So,
but this one guy is obligated on a fiduciary responsibility for the NPG.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all of a sudden he can't just divorce himself and say, "Well, I'm."
But what happens? Like, I agree. But what happens if they said like, "No, we don't want that"?
Well, yeah, we would have that. We would have that discussion.
Yeah.
But here is. I gave it to you there.
Which one is it? This one?
Yeah, you can see it right there top.
So this is I'll just read it for you. I'll get contacts as I go. So announcement of Daytona Motorsport Group purchase. This was March 7, 2008. The MPG released an official statement in support of today's announcement made by AMA Pro Racing at the Daytona International Speedway. AMA Pro Racing announced that the Daytona Motorsports Group, DMG, has purchased the rights to all AMA Pro Racing motorcycle properties, including the venerable AMA Toyota Motocross Championship presented by FMF. An official statement was immediately released by the MPG president, Kerry Coombs Russell, who represents the 12 track owners that are currently under contract to produce the 2008 AMA Motocross Championship. So then she says, we are pleased with today's announcement that AMA Pro Racing is turning things over to a company with the success and racing heritage that the Daytona Motorsports Group brings to our sport. The MPG and its 12 track owners will continue their commitment to the long-term growth of AMA Motocross and look forward to developing a successful working relationship with DMG. The MPG has been instrumental in raising the level of professionalism of motocross racing in the US, but we also realize our job is not done. We have developed an aggressive and comprehensive plan that encompasses all areas of the series, from competitive issues to event site upgrades and overall fan interaction. The MPG will implement a series of programs designed to improve the overall look and feel of AMA Motocross. We feel strongly about our direction and the future success for our series, its riders, teams, and sponsors. In time, we will learn of the inner workings of the business, arrangements made by AMA Pro Racing with DMG, and how our two organizations can capitalize on each other's strengths. This was a positive announcement for motocross in the US, and we're looking forward to another great summer of racing. So she wrote that on behalf of MPG.
After the bid had gone out.
Right.
So
And-
after they'd lost the bid
bid
to Daytona Motorsports Group.
Motorsports,
Right.
and she was still representing the MPG.
Well,
And so what was
she
like,
never resigned from said or gave full disclosure that now I'm going to try and do this on her own. I mean, that's the part. There is
no,
there is a fiduciary responsibility.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I guess like I can definitely see how that it can look a certain way. But I also can see on the other side a businessman like France and the France family just like it's his at that point it's his series
Right.
and it's his rules.
Right.
You know, like at the moment that MPG lost the bid to DMG, it's just kind of out of the MPG's hands.
Correct.
Completely, you know. And so that's the bit where I guess the story changes, and for everyone listening, for you guys, like unless we were in the room and had those, like there's on the one hand, Davey could have fucked yous over. And on the other hand, that guy could have just said, France could have just said like, hey, there's only one way I want to do this. You guys do it. And as far as what happens next, it's all the same tracks.
Correct.
So MX Sports didn't change the tracks. Everyone, like from what I understand,
There was no MX Sports. It was Dave Coombs' family. MX Sports wasn't formed until a year later.
Yeah, so the MX Sports, once that was formed, it's all the same tracks. It's all the same promoters. From what I understand, it's about $1 million a year, the licensing fee that they have to pay to DMG. And if you've got 11 rounds, I've spoke to some promoters, the fee is anywhere between 60 and 100,000. I think some bit lower, a bit higher. So that roughly works out to $1 million. So the fees that MX Sports now are charging the tracks, it roughly works out to be the licensing fee. And then,
Do we know that? I mean,
no, that's what I'm saying. I call people. I called people.
No,
Like,
where's that money going? Money's paid to MX Sports.
yeah. So this is from me calling people. So I asked Davey how it works, and then I called promoters, right? So they have to pay DMG, so MX Sports. So they lease the series from MX Sports essentially. From DMG. And so it's about $1 million a year that MX Sports has to pay to DMG, right? And so all of the tracks are between $60,000 and $100,000 licensing fee for the event.
Correct.
And if you add up 11 tracks at roughly that, they're basically charging the tracks and splitting that $1 million. So who makes that money is MX Sports. So they make about $1 million off track fees, and then they pay about $1 million to DMG.
DMG Group. Correct.
So that's where, like, I see that it's like it sucks that the MPG didn't get it, and that MX Sports was formed ad hoc, post hoc from the the meetings, right? And yeah, let me have a look here. I'll get to that in a sec. But the $1 million fee is split to all the same tracks that were in the so MPG. All the members, everyone that was in the MPG is like the deal pretty well stayed the same, right? So
do you think the DMG paid AMA Pro Racing $1 million a year or some lease? I think they bought the property.
yeah, but that's the thing. So
So they bought the property,
yeah,
and so now they're going to lease part of it for $1 million a year,
yeah,
based on. I mean,
but what?
nobody's writing a check to DMG that I know of from the promoters. We're writing it to MX Sports.
Yeah, but DMG charges MX Sports $1 million.
Then where are we
a
getting
year.
that? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where are we getting that information from?
But before we get into this podcast, we have some breaking news. Manscaped now offers beard products and they are available in your country. It's time to tame your mane, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's new Beard Hedger Pro kit. They have created 4 dermatologist-tested formulations for your post-trim care. First, there is the beard shampoo and conditioner, the beard balm that shapes, styles, moisturizes, and tames for a sculpted look. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. The Beard Pro Kit also comes with 3 free gifts, a beard brush, comb, and scissors to ensure your beard is always ready to impress. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code GYPSYGANG at manscaped.com. Manscaped Beard Hedger. 1 stroke, 1 guard, 20 lengths.
I've got that. Well, I can only go off. I can't go any deeper, or I haven't been able to go any deeper as to where that money goes from. But from what I understand, Davey and MX Sports has to pay roughly $1 million a year licensing fee. So if I'm DMG and I want to make money out of the Nationals without doing anything, how would I do that? I would license the series and say, you guys pay me $1 million a year, do whatever the fuck you want with it. And then it's up to MX Sports to make more than $1 million a year, and that's how MX Sports profits, right?
Right.
So so DMG, there you go. We just want to make $1 million a year off Motocross Championship. That's what it's worth to us. We own it. We can do what we want. We'll lease it to MX Sports for $1 million.
Correct.
And then MX Sports, whether you make $100,000 or $5 million, doesn't matter. We've got our $1 million. You run the series. This is what you. That's how the deal works.
Well, that would brings up a bigger question. Why would somebody have a series and pay somebody $1 million just to have the AMA name on it and do nothing?
Well, because the AMA does a lot.
No, AMA doesn't do anything. They pay at the track. The tracks pay the AMA when they're there.
Yeah, but so you can probably speak to what the AMA does, right?
So, well, there's really now, there is no AMA that comes to the track because that would be MX Sports that bring the correct.
But in terms of the organization of AMA, like why do they exist? What do they do?
Really, that now AMA is just a name that it is the AMA because AMA Pro Racing is owned by DMG Group. So,
but it's the sanctioning body, right?
Yeah.
So like what you said, like that's what means something is like the number one played. It's AMA or the AMA Championship. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and they do all the insurances and all of that sort of stuff and licensing of the riders. You've got to be an AMA Pro license.
As far as I know, and then I'm not saying because I don't get into that, but as far as I know, what I hear from the riders actually license themselves through MX Sports.
Yeah, but I think it's all through the back end of AMA, right?
I'm not sure. Everything goes through MX Sports, so I'm not sure what they do with the licensing fee after that because that is for the riders. Yep. So the riders do have to get there's 2 separate pro licenses. There's a Supercross Pro license that goes through AMA Ohio, I guess what I call it.
Yep.
And that goes through AMA Ohio. Once that series is over, the riders actually have to purchase another pro license under motocross, which goes through MX Sports
Yeah.
with an entry fee, of course,
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah.
Now, that does go through the MX Sports
Yeah.
website. You can go to MX Sports and you can
Yeah.
sign up for Southwick if you want to race right now.
Yeah.
Now, those fees, in my viewpoint, would go back to MX Sports.
Yeah, they make all the
all
fee- yeah,
those
yeah,
fees.
Yeah.
So I'm going back to where kind of our breakdown came from is on to this point. So the riders are paying their fees to motocross, supercross. Okay, their riders' fee. In that, riders will get hard cards and sponsors will get hard cards because again, the sponsors are paying too to go to these events, and the teams are paying to go to these events to park, so they get their hard cards. And then in return, each rider gets a certain amount of passes to come into the event for the riders. And then those are the top teams, and most of them have hard cards, which is quite a few hard cards that
Yeah,
come into the park.
I've got a hard card.
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So you understand what I'm saying? So then when the MPG was running, I just give you a real quick
Yep.
breakdown, just to make it real simple. When the MPG was running, there was sponsor money that was put together. There was a points fund that we did for the riders as the MPG. And we paid an AMA rights fee back then to
How much was it roughly?
I want to say
25,000.
25,000 back then we were paying.
Yep.
Okay, and back then too, so we got this point, and then again they still had their riders services where they had hard cards. They had the riders that came up and needed to buy extra passes. They were allowed so many. And back in the day, I'd always reconcile with AMA, and at the end of the year, we would get a certain amount of money back from the AMA for overage from the rider. So we would get a
Yeah.
portion of it. So if they sold the ticket for $50, we might get $15 a ticket for them.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was how it used to go. So then that stayed on there. So at the end of the year for the MPG, after we paid all these expenses, including Carrie, John Ayers, all the expenses, there was a fund, and we would divide that between 12 promoters, and we would get a check, for some thousands of dollars that would go back to us.
How much do you reckon?
I would say it would always roughly from about 30 to sometimes 50,000. It was kind
So
of
that was basically what you'd make for a national for a year.
well, not make. That was just the extra money because
Sponsors,
we were a group, so we shared in all the series sponsors. We shared in all of but then we also shared all the expenses too. So that was how it was. We took all the expenses, we took all the sponsor money, minus plus, and then that was and divided by 12 promoters, and that money was divided. And again, Carrie Coombs handled all that.
Yeah.
So that was how it went. Then we went to where we were with Carrie at this contract. So basically, we came in with a rights fee that went considerably higher. We no longer had any sponsor money
How
because
much higher did it go?
we went up to, I think when we first started, it was 50,000.
So is this with MX Sports now?
MX Sports
Yep,
now.
Yep, yep.
So-
So do you understand how? So when it was just the MPG, there was no middleman. Like
No.
DMG became a middleman.
Correct.
So that's where I think everything got more expensive, right?
Yeah. May
Yeah.
I just point
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
Point out here a quote, not a quote, but here, just read it.
Yeah, I can read it for you. So it just what's highlighted. Sorry.
It's an article and it was written, but what's highlighted is all.
So, two of the contenders in the four-way fight for control were simultaneously knocked out. The WPSA, which had been the main threat on the ATV side, filed for bankruptcy, while the bidding war for AMA Pro Racing was won by DMG, which immediately sold the portion to MX Sports. So,
And that's my point. We were told at the same day,
Yeah.
bad news, you lost. Good news, we won.
so,
That is not
Yeah.
legitimate.
so MX Sports doesn't own the rights though, even now.
No,
It's a lease.
it's a lease, so they have a contract. Yes,
Yeah.
I do know they have a
Yeah,
contract.
yeah.
But yeah, they're so I guess back to the point that we're not to this point is all having to do with the riders ticketing,
Yep.
the teams, that kind of money. So if you take out all the elements that now the promoters have lost sponsorships, truthfully, because all the series sponsors are going to go to MX Sports because, like you said, we have a middleman, okay? So we're not getting that. We can sell our title sponsor and we can do a few vendors. And so basically the only income that the tracks have now to subsidize the $50,000 to $100,000 rights fee
Plus
the track fees, plus the pro purse fees,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot to build a track. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
say,
yeah,
Ryan Villapoto made a great point. Glen Helen is a whole nother animal
Oh yeah.
on national. That's an
Dude, crazy.
expensive amount of money to make Glen Helen
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So you have to look at the fencing, as because we want the fans to have the experience. So
Yeah,
we have to
yeah.
have safety fences, ambulance roads. So it's very expensive. So we lost this little extra money that we had when we didn't have the middleman, like you said.
Yeah.
And so the tickets are very, very important to Glen Helen.
Yeah.
Tickets are the
Yeah.
most important things. We have to sell our tickets. And making it a Saturday event only, it's very hard to have amateur day on Friday when you got to be done at 2:00. And who wants to ride Glen Helen the day after a national? Nobody wants to ride Glen
Yeah,
Helen.
yeah.
So it became a ticket thing. So when they kept asking for more and more tickets for their riders,
How much do they ask for?
they were asking for 2,500 extra tickets
Extra,
extra
in on top of.
of all the hard cards that they had already sold. And
but we don't pay for hard cards.
Oh,
no,
oh, that's a point right there.
yeah, you do. Some people do.
Well, I'm telling you now, like in terms of me, like I
I don't think media does
Okay, okay.
pay for hard cards. I'm saying
so-
riders.
Yeah.
So when the riders pay, I don't
but
know
the
how.
riders pay for hard
Well,
cards.
if you're
course.
licensing fee.
Let me. I can read it first if you like. So I guess to
Here's what the teams have to pay.
yeah.
Yeah, and then riders. There's the teams. What the teams pay to the MX Sports.
Yeah.
And they need those tickets to. That's for hard cards, and then
Yeah.
go back up here. The other one, next page. Next one, I think. Right
This
there.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is to Dr. Feldkamp.
No, here. I'm sorry. I want to.
So yeah, the riders do pay for they do pay for their hard cards, and the teams do pay for their hard cards.
Event passes.
So event pass. So this is from Dr. Feldkamp to MX Sports, or to it says to Dr. Feldkamp as
Yeah,
well.
it's from a team sent it to me.
Oh, okay. Event passes are available to crew members, rider guests, and industry personnel. Event passes can be purchased either online through a racer's rider profile or on-site at industry services. An industry pass is only good for the event which it was issued. The cost for an event pass is $50 in advance and $60 at the event. Event passes are good for gate admission and all-day pit paddock access both Friday and Saturday. There are two types of event passes. Crew pass is issued to authorize rider mechanics and requires a current AMA membership. A guest pass is issued to authorized rider guests and industry personnel and does not require AMA membership.
Right.
So that's where everything kind of broke down, where they were actually
So-
selling passes.
Let's go back to in this interview you did with Davey. He mentioned the 5 points or 4 points. He couldn't remember the other one. Well, and we put the will call around down by the jail supposedly. Well, they want to put it right in front of our gate so they can sell these tickets to anybody that want. And these are the only revenue source we have are these tickets, and they include.
But what about like parking, sponsorship?
Well, yeah, we had that.
camping, practice, because there is like it's not just tickets, right?
We sell parking pass,
Yeah, so
parking,
that-
and then the camping.
So I guess, and this is in the last time you had a national was a while ago. So I guess
2018.
Yeah, so maybe things have changed a little bit.
Correct.
But from what I understand now, the tracks get all the gate, they get all the parking, they can sell a
No,
top.
wait, back up. All the gate. What do you mean all the gate?
They get all the gate.
No, it's right here. They're selling the gate.
Yeah, but this is from people that I've spoke to as of right now. So like promoters. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I understand, but things
Yeah.
might have changed in that time. You know what I mean?
Right, it's okay.
Yeah. So I'm just saying as of today, because like if there's big part of me that is like, all right, what do we got to do to fucking get a national back?
Yeah.
You know, and there's an element of there's a point of contention from me putting myself in your shoes is that whole DMG, MX Sports, and I can see how if you're not in that room and you weren't at that conversation, there's a way you can see that. But I also can see an organization like DMG with, the owner and Davey Coombs Sr. having a relationship and that being something that goes so I can really see both sides of that, right? So and again, how many years ago was that?
Oh, long time
30
ago.
years, 20 years
Yeah,
ago?
30 years ago.
So,
Oh, no.
Oh, wait. So, I mean, we're going
15 years
15
ago.
years ago. So it's like, we're just never going to know that, So I wasn't there. I can't, and I guess the thing I call my biggest thing coming into this, I was like, I need to talk to some promoters right now and be like, is it good? Because there was things that I didn't know as well and things I've never really cared to know, I guess. But I mean, I spoke to a few promoters, some of the bigger ones, and it's an extremely, extremely profitable weekend, like 7-figure profitable. So, like, would you believe that? Like, nationals in 2023 are making
I don't
7
do
figures?
this for the profit. I do it for the sport and for the fans and everything. And yet it is profitable now, but we've done it without it. Glen Helen's very profitable now.
Yeah.
And that's not why we want to do it. But we don't want somebody to represent to us that they're going to be our representative and then change in midstream and not tell us. There is a fiduciary responsibility,
Yeah.
and I feel betrayed by that, and I'm very much betrayed by that. And it is fine for Davey to say, he wanted. We weren't an organization, but we were, and we had a corporate council, and we operated like it. And then we come along, and we say Bud Feldkamp tore up the contract. I have never tore up a contract in my life. I have negotiated contracts, and I tried to negotiate with the Coombs. But once they got control of everything, which they have the control from all the sanctioning body, everything, and it was kind of a take it or leave it attitude that came from the Coombs, and I wasn't going to do that. So, again, I tried to negotiate. We negotiated everything down to the tickets, and we finally settled on everything but the tickets. They started out at 3,500 free tickets. I thought they were free.
Which is like $200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah.
Right, a lot of money, and they were free. But then I find out that they're selling them. They are not giving them free. They're double dipping. So I pushed back. I said, no, you don't need that many. I'll give you 1,000, And they pushed back. No, we'll come down to 2,500. And finally, I think they came down to 2,250, and we said, well, we'll come up to 1,250. And then that's when it broke down. And then he said, well, we're not going to play ball.
Yeah.
And so I said, fine. But that's what it boils down to. You can't, it is correct. We get the parking. We get very little of the vending because the vending is done by the series, most of the series.
Well, from what I understand now, from just speaking to promoters now, they pretty much have control of the vendors.
Who's they? The
Oh,
promoter?
I don't want to say. I said off record for the other people I spoke to. I just don't want to
No, we say they
promoters right now doing the nationals.
have the control of
they
vendors.
have vendors. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the T-shirt guy that's a friend of Bud's, it does T-shirts for the Rose Bowl. He's been doing it for the Rose Bowl for the last 15 years. He's a big operator, great guy, motocross guy. And why shouldn't we be able to sell T-shirts? Why shouldn't Troy Lee's team sell T-shirts? But we weren't allowed to do that because we got to protect this guy John Ayres, and he can be the only one selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
And if we
I
want,
actually pushed Davey on that last night.
Yeah.
That was one thing I didn't understand.
And back to our T-shirt guy, in defense of our T-shirt guy, Ronnie, he was only selling Glen Helen apparel, which was not what John Ayres was selling. So he would just have something that had
and-
Glen Helen, no national.
But so Davey told me, because so it's actually, that's one of my point of contentions as with the series, and I've actually, I didn't get to talk about it with Davey on the podcast. We just run out of time. But yeah, I've always been like, I think it's kind of sucks that people can't sell their own T-shirts. But apparently you can, but you've got to go through you've got to buy a vendor. So you actually can if you pay the price, which would essentially be you guys paying yourself.
well, we were told as long as it didn't have a motorcycle on it.
Well, I think from what Davey told me anyway, it said as long as it didn't have Glen Helen National, it just the national rights went to John Ayres. And so John Ayres also does, and so he was one of the MPG guys, so he's kind of grandfathered in, which I wasn't aware of. But so they actually do all of the finish line, all of the signage, all of the track infrastructure. So it's like a bit of a tied together deal. And the reason that was explained to me is that it's consistency. That was the biggest thing that DMG said, is that the series has to be consistent. And that's essentially what Feld does. Feld rolls in with their trucks, the scaffolding, the finish line, the towers, the scoreboard, and it all is the same every single weekend. And so John Ayres is tied to the infrastructure and the shirts in the same way. And I was actually talking to Davey about, and I just said, well, if you're a privateer and you want to sell merch, like, what's the deal? And he's like, well, if you pay the vendor fee and you go as a vendor, you can sell T-shirts, right? And I even said, because selling T-shirts sucks. Like, we did our race and we had like 3,000 people at our race, and we didn't really sell many T-shirts. And then my wife had to refold them, and they were dusty and dirt, and so it's a whole thing. And so I said to Dave, I was like, well, could people just do like an online store? Like, you get your Quick Shade and you have your online store, you pay your money, bang, and instead of carrying it around all day, you get it in the mail a couple of days later. And he said that's fine as well. So the T-shirts were a thing that I was a bit like, well, yeah, it kind of seems insane that people can't sell T-shirts.
You mentioned John Ayres. We paid for John Ayres for doing all that. That was a paid fee. There was a fee for that.
Yeah, but it makes sense. It cost him money. It cost him money to do it, right?
Yeah. And that was the same thing when we did it. And John Ayres did do a uniformed production. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he
But
did.
it was paid. It was paid by us.
Yeah.
By all the promoters.
Yeah,
correct.
which makes sense.
Yes.
So I guess I'll read you actually just to clarify. So I actually just said I messaged Davey last night and I just said, I just want to know like exactly what the deal is with all this, right? So basically this is directly from Davey. He said, each track keeps their own parking, camping, concessions, spectator tickets, presenting sponsors, and vendors, plus amateur days, T-shirt sales, whatever. MX Sports pays the rights fee to DMG and spreads it across the tracks, including our 2, was 3, but we dropped Steel City off for the sake of trying the Southeast and it failed. MX Sports does the day-to-day running of the series, doing the TV and streaming package, which he admits was a debacle with MAV TV. And we take care of infrastructure of an event, series sponsors, media, everyday entries and licensing, rulebook, working with the OEMs, rider licensing, the entry with AMA Pro Racing, media tents, paddock control, hard cards, website, TV production, live timing and scoring, and the heavy lifting that no one sees 364 other days for the year. Tracks pay their own purse, which in 17, which is the last, in 18, which is the last time you guys did the national, was 70,000. Now it's 100,000. We do all of the commercials, the series website, the series marketing, the series awards, the series social media, and then the series bidding within the industry. So that's essentially just like a top-down breakdown of like who keeps what, who gets what, And then so I'd spoken to multiple promoters that have said it's very profitable. So I guess, and I know it's not just about the money, but I guess the thing that I've kind of come to think about this situation over the last few weeks is that there's 11 people that are happy, that seem, you know what I mean?
Correct.
And there's 11 people making money, and no one that I spoke to, and it was all off the record. People told me numbers. People told me how much money they make. People told me some of the shit that they didn't like. You know, that it was gnarly. Like, and that I had some of the bigger promoters say that they feel for tracks like Lakewood, where they don't do a big practice, they don't have camping. It's like a one day, and he said like they probably don't make money. But then the tracks that have amateur day, camping, the gates open Wednesday or whatever, and then they do a practice after, like they sell a title sponsor. All of the promoters that I spoke to as well said that ticket sales were actually up 30% last year.
Right.
And they attribute that to SMX. Basically, they said like the fact that the series came together and it's so much bigger on TV and it's got. So they said it was good and now it's really good. So the thing, I guess where I got to in all of this is like, fuck, there's 11 people that are making it work, and there's one track that we all want that isn't making it work, you know, and like
Well, you've been in business, right?
Yeah.
When you're in business with a partner, and he basically breaches his relationship with you, it's hard for you to trust him, and that's where I'm at. I think that I was all in, and when I found out that this all happened in one day, the going from no bid to there's some inside stuff going on there. And we had somebody that was supposed to be representing us, and they weren't representing us. So somebody did something that wasn't ethical, as far as I'm concerned, and I can't be involved in that. Now we are Glen Helen. We're working with Travis Pastrana. We always
you don't need the Nationals.
No. And we want the Nationals, but I don't want to be in a situation where there's one organization right now that controls everything that goes on in the Nationals, the Coombs family. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's healthy for the sport long term. There should be, the riders should get a percentage of the gate. The team should get a percentage of the gate. The sanctioning body should be a sanctioning body, and only that. And the promoter.
But I think I guess
there is no the sanctioning body is MX Sports.
No, but it's AMA.
I think that's where we're losing we're talking over each other because it's not AMA.
Yeah, but so the organization, like the day to day, like so if I want to enter Southwick, which I would never do, I would go to the MX Sports webs. Like it makes sense that there's a portal that you go to that you register, but like
it doesn't say AMA, it says MX Sports.
Yeah, but like the AMA is the one that provides the insurance. You got to have an AMA license. The AMA is the champion. Like it's sanctioned. It's the same way as like a box. So you've got the UFC, right?
Okay.
So you got the UFC, you know, that like the Ultimate Fighting. So you got that. And then if they go in Vegas, then the Vegas fights are sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. So the fighter then, they're UFC fighters, they got a UFC contract, they're fighting under that organization, they're on the UFC TV, but all of the legal back end, all of the rule book, they follow the Nevada State Athletic Boxing Commission rules, that it's judged by officials of the Nevada State. So like it's all through one organization, which is the UFC, but the entire back end, the thing that makes it a legitimate sport is through that organization. So you get what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, but I'm questioning if the AMA was the sanctioning body in the beginning, then they formed AMA Pro Racing.
Yeah.
Okay, then they combined the two. Now it's Pro Racing.
AMA is still AMA is AMA Ohio. AMA Pro Racing is completely
Yeah,
separate.
and that address is the Coombs, so AMA Pro Racing is a name that they've licensed or purchased from DMG. It's not the AMA. I mean, I think that's where we're breaking down.
Do you think we're getting it wrong? I'm not sure if I'm.
Well, and that's the situation that probably most everybody in the whole motocross industry, just like what you said with UFC, it's confusing. You have AMA Ohio. So if I want to sanction a amateur race tomorrow, I would go to AMA Ohio and I would call them and say, I want my sanctioning fee, I want my charter, and this is what I want to do. And that's where all of Loretta Lynn's and Mammoth go through.
Yep.
Okay, so that's all on that end, and that's it. Okay, so when you come over to...
And so that's amateur.
That's amateur. That's Ohio.
So you're not getting paid.
You're not getting paid, but you can buy your insurance as a promoter through there. You can do everything like that. I have my AMA license card I've had forever. That is in Ohio, but when you go back over to the pro racing, it is very hard to distinguish that you are buying a AMA pro license when it says motocross through MX Sports. Now, I think, and again, I would have to ask a pro rider, I think when they buy their supercross license, they're still going through AMA Ohio. So there's two separate splits there. That is very confusing to myself too. So, if you want to make it a true AMA, like how he grew up, everything was just one AMA. You had an AMA number one plate. That was the big thing. And watch on any Sunday.
That's what they still get when they win.
They
the series.
still get, and
you still have, like, even for Supercross, you still have the dude on the podium that
that's
hands
what I was just
over them.
going to mention. Yes.
Yeah. But that still happens in motocross.
Now I'm not sure if it opens in motocross because the gentleman that comes and does the number one plate at Supercross is actually from AMA Ohio.
Okay.
Just a tidbit.
I'm not going to claim to know.
I don't, and I can't even say that because don't run very many AMA races at Glen Helen, so I don't know.
It makes sense to me that the pro racing is dealt with differently, but it wouldn't make sense to me if Supercross and motocross were different. So I'm with you in that.
That's a question for somebody else to answer. It's not my question answer. I couldn't answer that.
Yeah, so that's I don't get it, but I guess I don't know that. So I'll admit that I don't know that. But it does make sense to me that they would treat the properties differently. And if you're AMA, like AMA Ohio, if you can create a separate entity that then you can sell to DMG, that would make sense as well.
That's what they did, yes.
Yeah. So then it would make sense that you go like, oh shit, we can make X millions of dollars by selling this like pro racing property, which includes flat track and all that sort of stuff.
And the promotion of it.
Yes.
And we're going to be the sanctioning body too.
Yeah. So then there's the tickets issue. That's a thing. And so that it's 200 grand there. Like, let's call it 200 grand. So that is a money issue. The T-shirts, I understand when it seems like you guys could sell T-shirts. It's just that there's some confines around it.
Each team should be able to sell T-shirts.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
We don't.
That's a sticking point for me as well.
Yeah.
I think, but can you see that there's 11 people that didn't feel betrayed?
Right, because a lot of them are afraid to speak up because they will be, again, I was independent.
And financially independent
enough that I could speak up. And when we were betrayed by what happened with the DMG, I spoke up, so that's when, and I've been vocal about it ever since. But if you're just a one show track, or not one show track, but you're only running the summertime and stuff like this is your biggest event of the year, hey, you don't want to, bite the hand that feeds you. And
I guess that's kind of the point, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're getting fed.
But do we want all this power to be in one family?
But I guess that's sort of what I'm saying is, like, people don't seem to have a problem. And I spoke to people off the record, and like people that I've had long.
Well, if you're making money, why do you have a problem?
But that's what I'm saying.
No, what I'm talking about industry in a whole. You know, if you were a Honda and you have a team, you got to buy tickets and you have to fund riders and all that, and you get no revenue at all. If you have a bad, you have to take your revenue from the advertising budget.
Yeah.
If you decide in middle age that you want to have a motocross team, you don't get anything for showing up. You have to pay to show up, and the only way you can afford to do that is out of your own pocket or out of advertising of some company you have.
So you think that, let's say, that's a good example. So you think that if I decide to start the Gypsy Tales race team,
Right.
I should get a cut of the profits of the race that I go to.
Yeah. I mean, that's
But what? Like, why?
why? Because you are the show.
But like, what? Well,
Well, I mean, who's the show? The show is the riders.
yeah.
And right now you have like 4 or 5 manufacturers, but we want to expand it so we have like 20 teams out there. You know, you got the Troy Lee team, the other teams out there that don't have manufacturers. I mean, Dave Dameron wants to have a team, say.
Yeah.
You know, and he has to take it out of his advertising budget. But if we took that pie that comes into motocross, you know, and we cut it up and we had a committee of stakeholders, hey, I represent the teams, I represent the riders, we have a promoter, and we have a sanctioning body, and we sat down and we looked at the business model. Instead of having all the monies flowing through the Coombs, we would have the money broken up. And we would, I think we would grow the sport even more.
Yeah.
You think about FIM, not FIM, but
Formula One.
Formula One.
Yeah.
You know, Andrade, they don't want him in there because they don't want to split up the pie a little bit. But all those teams, if they never win a race, they do get some money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I mean. I think in motocross we need to rethink how we're doing this.
Yeah.
You know, because right now all the money is flowing through the Coombs, and that's not right. And the promoters.
Yeah, and so I guess that's probably a point worth, like,
I'm 80 years old. I don't want to deal with it, but that's what somebody needs to pick up that mantle and run with it because we need to rethink the business model of motocross.
yeah, and I think like in terms of the money flowing through the Coombs, like they don't, like the money goes through it's Ticketmaster now, I believe, or whatever. So it's like the majority of the money on the weekend.
Well, understood.
But I'll finish the point real quick. Like it's not like all the money goes into the Coombs bank account and then they wire you on Monday. It's like if Millville or Southwick, like they collect the entry fee. They get the cash. So like the tracks do handle the money themselves.
They handle their gate
It's not
fees.
like it goes through the Coombs.
I understood. Understood.
But I just think the way you worded it.
I'm
like, just to
sorry.
make sure,
But I mean, but all the series sponsorships, all the event sponsor. I mean, we get one event sponsorship. We got
which is about $50,000 these days, from
Correct.
what I hear. Yeah.
Yeah. If you sell it yourself.
Yep.
Okay. I sold it, by the way. I sold it to Coast Resorts in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Michael Gahn, I sold it, and I followed, you know, and got him to sponsor our event, our last event we had, and you're supposed to have a 30-second spot on the TV. I watched the TV and it's not there. You know, so I contacted the Coombs family. Why wasn't my guy there? Was in the contractor. You know, he paid money. Why wasn't there? Oh, it was a mistake. Speed doesn't want to have anything to do with casino. Well, you know, nobody told me. Nobody told her until the last minute. Go ahead, share that with them real quick.
Yeah, they just said that they thought it would be bad business to have a casino advertisement.
Was that so?
Hotel.
A hotel. It was South Point Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. So they just didn't run the ad. So, you know, Michael was.
But I collected the money.
Yeah.
And I didn't produce.
Yeah, which is shit.
Well, I guess so.
In business, like as a business person, that's you wouldn't feel good about that.
No, and when I contacted them about it, was this just a mistake? Email somebody, you know, sorry about that. That's all. I mean, it's not. No, we'll make it up this way, or we'll do this, or whatever. None of that.
Yeah. So I guess,
But let me finish my point. My point is, all the money other than the tickets to the promoters is going. All the money goes either to the promoter or to the Coombs family. And there is more than that putting on the show. There is the writers putting on the show. The writers get $100,000, but the rest of it comes from. That's it, isn't it?
Well, they have their sponsors.
Well,
Yeah,
they
but
have
Jet Lawrence probably made $10 million last
yeah,
year.
but it didn't come from the gate. It didn't come from.
Yeah, but so there's a
But my point is,
Yeah.
can't we get some
I guess, but I mean, like I understand, but there's also an element of like we're a free market capitalist society, and I'm sure you've benefited
Yes,
a lot from free market capitalism,
exactly.
and there's got to be an element that you would understand past all of the personal stuff to where
Right.
it's like it's business.
Right.
And if there's a group of these 11 tracks that have never changed, so the business can't be that bad. Like Millville's 42 years of nationals, right? So if I'm in a bad business relation, I've cut business ties when it didn't work for me. But you've got 11 tracks that never cut ties,
Uh huh.
and there is,
And never push back
but why?
because, well, why if you push back? It's controlled by one family.
Yeah, but 12
Oh, they're making money. They're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, they're
So
making.
I guess that's really the point, is and again, I'm team. Let's get a national back. I'm coming at this. I promise I'm coming at this from a nice way. But I guess I'm just trying to
And I hear you.
not make you understand. But I guess
I hear you. I hear you. Let's get a national back, but maybe
there's a reality of business.
Maybe it will be a Glenn Hellman a national. Maybe it will be a stopwatch national.
But
Maybe
why can't it be a national?
because the people that we're dealing with have breached their integrity is unquestionable in my mind.
Yeah.
And it's not in my mind. It's when you it happens in one day. You lost it. Oh, but the good news is we got it. All happens one day. I don't know about you, but there's
And I've said I can see that.
that's so now am I going to play ball with these guys again? No, I'm not. But I think there should be a big event at Glen Helen, and we're trying to do that. We're doing it with the World Two Stroke. We're trying to do it with the World Vet, and we're Stopwatch National. I'd love to put on a one-off event at Glen Helen.
I'll support any event you guys do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and we will. We want to.
Yeah.
I just don't. Everybody wants that national so bad. They want me to, move out of town.
Do you feel?
You know, that's what Davey said. Well, if Bud
Yeah,
would
just
move
go
out of town.
town for a weekend. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can see how it piss you off.
Yeah.
So, I guess.
Let's get it back. I'll take the part that we're apart. On the tickets, I'll give it to the riders.
Yeah, that's kind of what he said. If that's the 200,000, we'd rather
Well,
give that to the riders
Yeah, I don't want to give it to the Coombs. I'll give it to the riders.
or the teams.
But the problem is like, it doesn't really go to the Coombs if they have to pay $1 million licensing fee.
Oh, we never questioned the license fee.
But so what I'm saying is like, if you didn't pay that money to the Coombs,
No, I'm
Then
not.
the-
I would have paid it. We're
paying
paying that.
that money. What he's saying is the
free
amount of
tickets.
the free tickets
Yeah,
that we
okay,
were
yeah,
off.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what he's talking.
yeah,
We're not
yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about.
okay, sorry.
Let's just clarify all the things that Davey said on his thing about this, and this. I mean, we're willing, or he is, and we are willing to accept all that. And the terms of the agreement of 2018, the last contract, I have a problem paying the rights fee. Don't have problems paying the, putting up all the banners. The T-shirt, I think we resolved the T-shirt issue.
Yeah.
The track issue, we work on that. And truthfully, in defense of Bud, because the track is built by a track builder and Jody Weisel.
Yeah.
Really, he's not really involved. That could probably come back to me a little bit.
So
all those little
let's
issues.
touch on the track thing. You guys wanted it to be a bit longer.
No, that wasn't it. It just Glen Helen, as you know, it's a hard track to film. We've been doing live streaming. It's just hard.
Yeah.
But when we built our track. We want every single hill in there. And it is difficult and it is time consuming, even for the fastest rider in the world. And so we do work with them. We cut it down. And I thought in 2018, I was kind of shocked he said that. We made some track changes, and we were in the 212-minute situation. But
because I guess I can speak on that because of my film background. It literally comes down to like the length of cables.
yes.
You know, it's just like the most random shit from like a technical perspective, where it's just like we just have this hard limitation. There's just like levels to the game in terms of camera, and if you've got a production truck, it has X capabilities, you know, and like I've lived in that world, so I can speak on that side of it at least.
Yeah, so I think we have worked the track. We did have it where it was 3 minutes, but that has gone away. So I would say the track, but all the other issues he was on board on that. I don't think we were really pushing back on any of the items that he spoke about.
A quick story, real quick, is there was talk about the Glen Helen, the triple up, the high jump was so high.
Best jump of all time.
Yeah, it was too high. Go ahead, Lori.
So and this goes back to the track. Davey called me from Hangtown, says, "Oh, your triple step up is just awful. It's too high." And I'm like, "Well, I'm standing in front of it, and they're working on it, and you're in Hangtown." But I agree with you, Davey. It's too high. We'll meet. So on Monday morning,
I'll go out there.
and Bud was out there. Carl Scanlon, Brian Wallace, who builds our tracks. I don't know if John Ayers was there, but myself and Davey was there. And so we went to Carl, who's built our tracks since I started there. And Davey said, "Well, this is what we want." And Bud asked Carl, he goes, "Could you do this?" And Carl goes, "Yes, I can do whatever you want." At that point in time, they shook hands and said, "Okay,
I'll lower this jump because you want that. I don't think it should be, but you want it. I want to make sure your riders, when they come off the track, go down the fence line, our spectators, and glad hand everybody and get great photos."
So what day was this?
This was a couple days for the national.
Before the race, before the race.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I'll move the ticket thing up from, the wheel call up from behind and the jail, and we shook hands on it. Now with Davey, okay, well, that's the deal. And so, because I wanted the riders, when they finish the lap, to come back and go along the fence line, high five everybody, get some great photos, because, we want the fan experience to be great. And the first motor goes off, they don't do it. And so I go find Davey. See, Davey, what happened to our deal? He said, "Oh, it's out of my hands now. I can't do anything. I don't know anything about it." That's the guy I'm dealing with. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've heard. Okay, so this is actually like there's the 2015 Tomac podium.
That's what I'm talking about.
That was 18.
18.
Okay.
So I guess, because there's got to be
there was an agreement, a handshake agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, I guess.
But I was.
Yeah. I'm taking your word on that.
Yeah.
I understand the challenges of, like, it's not a normal, like, a national's not a normal race. Like, you guys don't broadcast any other race on NBC Live. So, like, it's just inherently comes with challenges, right? And again, like, you have to go back to all the other tracks that can just it's fairly frictionless at this point, and it's long-term relationship. And
to that point, I went to the NBC producer and asked him, he said, no problem, we can do that. I'll make sure that happens, no problem.
Yeah.
It did happen the second round.
Well, it happened. 'Cause I had to go to the NPA producer to have it happen, but Davey just walked off, said it's out of his hands.
Yeah. And I guess that it's like kind of a shitty question for me to ask you.
Ask me.
Like, how responsible do you feel in terms of just like being a guy that's easy to work with? Because so I got sent the video from the 18 podium. I actually have it if you just wanted to watch it. But there's a video of you walking up onto the podium. Tomac's just won his second moto, and he's revving the bike, and
I was there. That was me.
And there's a video of I could play it. Like, I got it, but it's like you pull Eli Tomac off the podium. Do you want to watch? Should we watch it?
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I didn't pull him off the podium.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. Oh, I was there.
But well, you did pull. I watched the video.
I actually pulled him off the
Yeah.
podium.
Do you want to watch it?
Sure.
All right. I'll just because I just think it just adds a bit of context of so this is. Oh, sorry, I got to go back a little bit. So Tomac comes on the podium, and he's just won the second moto. So this isn't on TV yet, but this is like the broadcast camera.
Right.
And then you're coming up here. And so you're basically saying, like, I'm the owner of Glen Helen. Do it now. I need you to go back. And he's like and so from what I've been told, they were supposed to cut to live TV here, and they couldn't cut to it because he's now walking off the podium. And then see like there's like a lot of confusion. And then Tomac's going back up to the
Right. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah,
Well,
so I guess my question in that is like,
I was just told.
but I guess the thing is, there's got to be a level of, like, if I just have to put myself in like
Sure.
the series position here.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've got an owner of a track that you can't cut to like the live TV and like the things that you've kind of every other consistency, like if you can't trust that you're going to be able to operate smoothly and cleanly and just without a hitch every single time that you go there like they do with other people, like could you see how that can cause an issue with
Understood.
I feel bad and I'm trying to I'm trying to ask the right question.
I appreciate you asking the question, and if you notice, I said, "Well, this is crazy. I'm going to back off." Okay,
Yeah.
But at the time, I had just been told.
Yeah.
You know, I was promised. I made a deal, shook hands with Davey Coombs, and this was going to happen, and it didn't happen. You know, and so I was in the moment because I wanted him not to go buy VIP fans. I wanted him to go buy, you know, and it was a very simple thing to do. But I was kind of like, you know, like screw you, we're not going to do it, and it was very frustrating to me. Yeah, so I did lose my composure, but now I realize that I shouldn't have. And but I again, this was for the fans. It wasn't. It wasn't.
And I was about to. I'm going to back you up. All this is coming from a good place.
Yeah.
All right. I fully get that.
Yeah, it's all for the fans. Always for the fans.
I 100% get that. And why? I've raced to Glen Helen. I've been to Glen. You know what I mean? And so, I'm only saying this because it's like I know it's coming from the right place.
Sure. Well,
But as a you just couldn't have it as a as the organizer of the series. Like it's just that look is, and just to know like, if I go to Glen Helen, I'm gonna have to deal with that. And as well, like so that didn't get sent to me by Davey actually. So, but there's another thing where like Davey's never released that. You know, like that footage that could have come out a long time ago.
Correct.
And he's never done it. He's never released it. He never even spoke to me about that incident. I had other people call me that were like, Davey's too nice. Davey's so nice about this whole Glen Helen thing. Like, so it was other people. So, I mean, I've got to then give a fair bit of like credit to Davey personally, because if I had that, I'd just be like, fuck it. This is the guy that I got to deal with. Like, I don't want to deal with it, you know. So
what went wrong, though? Wouldn't you ask if you owned it? What went wrong? What went wrong, Lori? Why did that work?
Well, so back to that whole situation. When we went back to negotiate for the contract for 2019, that was brought up in some of our conversations. And truthfully, when I sat down, and actually I wasn't even with Davey, it was Carrie, and I told her, I'm going to take 50% of that blame for that situation. And I said, kind of Davey might have to take 50% because us two were the ones that were up there when Bud and Davey shook hands on it. My problem was as we went back down, I sent somebody else to the production meetings, not myself, because I was too busy. And I forgot to reiterate to production that this is what we wanted to do. In return, Davey forgot to tell Nick McCabe from NBC the same thing. So when we started negotiations back again, I basically said, hey, Carrie, let me take 50% of that whole blame because I was there. It was my duty to tell the person that I sent to the production meeting, this is what we wanted. And it fell through the cracks on both my part and Davey's.
Into perspective, that was the second moto.
Yeah.
And I've already addressed it with the NBC guy. We can do that. Everybody else knew about it. And it still didn't happen. So
And then I think, but like the chances of Eli Tomac giving a fuck about any of that after he's just gone 1-1, crazy good, like it's just, he's just going to ride to the podium. So like all the procedures that you could possibly ever try and put in place, you could still just have one dude decide.
Yeah.
Eli Tomac's just riding to the podium. So like even if you did everything right, even if MX Sports did everything right, even if NBC did everything right, Eli Tomac is on the motorcycle and just rides up to the podium, and all of everyone's plans go to shit without any bad intentions at all.
wouldn't you, though, as Davey Coombs, when I confronted him on the first moto, said, Bud, I'm sorry about that. I'll make sure it happens.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
Eli
Tomac just rides to the podium, and then whatever Davey Coombs did or didn't want to do is irrelevant anyway because he's on the podium. And then
This is before.
I know, but what I'm saying is Eli doesn't know that you shook hands.
that's what-
Eli doesn't know.
No.
And even if someone told him after 30 minutes at Glen
I
Helen,
wasn't blaming Eli at all.
but what I'm saying is, like, there's this potential breakdown in communication between what you said and what you thought was going to happen and what Davey said he was going to do for the second moto. All I'm saying is Eli Tomac just as a wrench in that works, because if he just decides to just go full autonomous and rides to the podium, you don't have control of that. Davey doesn't have control of that.
There was a flagman there, Davey Coombs' employee flagman, that flagged him into the podium. That flagman should have said,
I know, but what I'm saying is there's just
I hear you.
there's so many things
I
that
know.
can go wrong along the way
right. That's why you have
can
to,
make it, like, all plans mean nothing,
Yeah.
you know?
right.
That's
essentially
that
Totally,
happens.
totally
And
agree.
that's exactly what I said from the very beginning. There's never a perfect event.
Yeah.
Never will be a perfect event. And there's going to be little things that don't go right. And that's every week. I mean, and
Yeah,
that could be at Glen
100%.
Helen.
Whether it's at a national or an
It
REM.
could be a national. It could be at Loretta's. It could be at a million different events. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I can definitely see the frustrations, and I guess, again, being team motocross, the more that I've thought about this over the last few weeks, way more than I ever thought I would, believe it or not. And I wanted to make sure that I really was trying to give you guys a fair, just to get the story across and just to let people really see your perspective and really see where you're at. But I guess from people can make up their own minds, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is an issue between two dudes.
Correct.
Let's just call it what it is. There's an issue between you and an issue between Davey.
I think it's Kerry Coombs, too.
All right, an issue between you
And Coombs.
and the Coombs, right? So that's two people
Mm-hmm.
that hold the keys to this amazing event that hundreds of thousands of people want to see back on. So I've been thinking about this from like a...
You want me to leave town? Is what you want me to do?
No. I like you. I'm having a good time. I think you're great. And so you're actually in a pretty good position right now. I don't know if you realize that. I'm gonna guess. Now this is just me speaking out my ass. I'm gonna guess Davey Coombs probably doesn't give a fuck if he never has a national at Glen Helen again. I'm probably gonna bet that he really doesn't want to go there again,
Yeah.
right?
Probably.
But he's put himself in a bit of a weird position now because he's publicly come out and said that you're the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're on here and you get to be the person that could go, okay, sweet, let's figure it out. And then you're going to force him to do something that he probably doesn't want to do, which is put on a Glen Helen National. Because if you come out and say, let's just make it happen today, then it literally the ball goes back in their court, and you get to be the guy that makes it right, and you get to be the guy that says, you know what, it's fucked up. Everyone now knows the story. Everyone now knows your perspective of how MX Sports fucked over the MPG. That story's out there. That story's been told by you. But you also get to be the guy that then controls the narrative and say, look, there is 11 races, tracks that are fine with it. The big ones are making a lot of money. You guys are one of the big ones. Glen Helen National in 25, 26 would be one of the biggest ever. You just get to be the guy that just says, you know what, I was wronged. I'm going to take the high road. Let's make it happen. You're not going to feel good about it probably. But I just think that there's like a element of like legacy, you know? And it's like you did this thing for the fans, and you did this thing for the sport of motocross, and you did this thing for the people. And it's like the people, we're the ones that are getting hurt now. You know what I mean? It's the people that lose. Like you don't lose, bro. You're fucking,
I want to go to the national.
Yeah.
I want to see happy fans.
Well, I guess you do lose in a way that, like, everyone loses right now, you know, and it just seems like with Davey publicly saying that it was because of you, you kind of get to be the guy now. Like, you're in a pretty good position. You kind of get to be the hero of the story that makes it happen again, you know, and we all can win.
Yeah.
So
I need to leave town. Is that
I
what?
don't think, no,
I think
what?
I think like he says, you put out your position out there for the first time in
Ever.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
what he's saying is that, you know, you kind of hold like
You hold the key.
You hold the key to, you love the sport. It's not the money. 11, like you said, 11 promoters make the money. Glen Helen is fine. We're surviving, but your passion for the people and the sport and the riders and the industry and the Troy Lees and the Mitch Paytons and the Roger DeCosters all want the national at Glen Helen.
And you want the national.
And you want the national at Glen Helen. But, you know, are you ready to give in that little bit of piece is what he's saying.
I think I've given in so much over the years that it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back was the tickets when they wanted 3,500 tickets and then to put on the event, and then they were selling them. I found out they were selling them, and they're selling them right in front of my face. So there's a point where, you know, you just, how much do I, how much do I bend over?
But you did say that if they were willing to give that $200,000 back to the riders,
Yeah, well,
that would be
this, again, if we give $200,000, the $100,000 that additional that I was going to give to the Coombs, you know, to put on the event, if I could give that to the riders, instead of having a $100,000 purse, we'd have a $200,000 purse at Glen Helen.
The only problem with that is then the Coombs have to pay that money.
No, I pay the money.
he pays the money. He's not saying anything about the rights fee.
I'm not talking about the rights fee. I pay the purse money.
Yeah. But so you want to give an extra $100,000
Correct.
to the
To
riders?
yes.
So you would make Glen Helen a $200,000 event.
Right, but I'm not going to give the tickets, the extra $100,000 for the tickets that they're going to sell.
I don't think they'd have a problem with that.
I wouldn't think so. But they did. That's where our deal stopped right there.
Yeah.
You know, they went down to 3,500 was too many, and we went from 1,000 to 1,250, and they went down to 2,500 and now to 1,250. But there's 1,000 tickets.
I think the tickets are probably the least of everyone's worries at this point.
And
I
that's
think the
where-
thing that really needs to happen is I think you just need to say, like, I'm all right, let's do it. Let's whatever it takes, let's figure it out.
Can I read you something that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So since we're at the end of it, in 2018, when we were doing this, at the very end of this conversation with the Coombs, they were supposed to meet January 2019 in Anaheim. It was Davey Coombs, Buddy Feldkamp, John Anderson, we're all going to go down to WUSA. And they were going to work out the final issues of these tickets.
Now,
At-
explain that to him again so he should have heard that.
Okay, so we were at the last straw. And so I think between John Anderson and myself, we said, let's try one more time. Let's not lose it again. Pretty much mine was because of Tom White. Let's keep this going. So we go down there, and I know Bud was leaving the office, and I said, you know what? You got to 1250. Meet him halfway. Let's say 1500. That was all there was. So they were getting ready to go. I could not go because of another commitment at Glen Helen. And so Buddy, his son, said to him, well, is Davey going to be able to make a decision if we're going to drive all the way down to Orange County and do this and meet in the office of W? Is this going to happen? And Davey got on the phone and said, well, I couldn't make the decision. We would have to have my sister there, and she's not there. And so John Anderson made the saying, well, can we just put her on the phone?
Made a suggestion.
And
Let's
made
get
a
her on-
suggestion. We'll just put her on the phone conversation. And she denied to do the phone conversation. And that's where it ended. And that was our last conversation. So back to what he's saying in his conversation is he's willing to give the tickets or whatever, or not give them any more tickets, but give it back to the riders and make it that. And that would not have anything to do with their rights fee, none of the contract fee. It's just give it back to the riders and call the tickets 1,000 tickets to them that they sell. And that's been the whole point from 2009 all the way to 2018.
It's the straw that breaks the
That's
camel's
a
back.
straw that
Yeah,
breaks the camel's back. So that's where we're putting it, and that's what he said. He's willing to give $100,000 to the pro person. They keep their 1,000 tickets to give to whatever they want at the front gate.
Yeah.
And we sell everything else.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and I think, because I guess the point as well is that, like, it's changed. Like since you guys since the last time there was a national, I mean, the sport's a lot bigger. Everything's different, and it's now SMX is involved, so that, like, it's evolved and it's grown. And I think with other promoters just making money and making good money, that it seems like everyone's fairly happy, And I think that if Glen Helen could get a deal that just looked like everyone else's deal, everyone else is fine. And I think that if you guys could just get a very similar deal going, I just don't see the issue past that.
Do you have a similar deal? I mean, what is this similar deal? I mean,
Well, so
I think there was the Glen Helen deal, and then there was other deals. Each track was a little different.
it's all very similar, though. It's all in the ballpark, I think you guys could probably, I mean, you'd know the other promoters.
Yeah, I do.
You're going to get a sense of what. I just think that you guys, it's just it needs to just be a clean slate, A lot of shit's happened. There's a lot of personal shit that's happened, and my point of that, the video is like, you're not innocent in this either. You know what I mean? Like, you've done some shit that if I was in business, I'd be like, fuck, too hard, And I'm sure, and Davey's done that back, right? That's a fact. There's
Right.
no one in here doesn't have blood on their hands.
Right.
So it's like, I think, in the, like, don't you want to be there and watch a national again? Like, you're an old guy. Like, there's a legacy to be able to still to enjoy the best fucking race at the best track, and the people that would flock to Glen Helen to watch that national. I just think that being about the sport and being someone that's invested so much money and so much of your life in the sport, like, it is a personal issue, And I think that there just are times in your life that call for being the bigger person, and right or wrong, and just being like, taking control of a situation and taking the high road, which fucking sucks, and giving people what they want. And it might feel like a personal loss to you, which I understand. But I guess then you need to think, like, how much is the personal loss worth versus the gain of so many people that love the same thing that we all love.
Yeah, I think you made him speechless on that.
No. Well, I all I heard was Davey throwing me under the bus. Leave town. We can do this. Tearing up contracts. That's all I've heard from Davy Coombs.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. It's
I haven't
personal.
heard it from you. I haven't heard anything from Davy Coombs. I haven't heard any. Well, let's see if we can work it out. Sit down and
Hey, and that, like I said, I'm motocross in this.
yeah,
I'm motocross.
Okay.
Motocross wants the race back. I'm not Davey. I'm not you. I'm motocross.
right.
Motocross wants the race back.
I hear you.
I'm a fan.
No, I hear
You're
you.
a fan.
I
and
hear
you've
you.
got the keys to the castle. Davies put the ball in your court by saying it's all on you.
No, he's not. He's saying it's all on me at his terms, and I'm just saying we need to correct the terms a little bit. And I want to
Yeah.
I want to divvy up the pie a little bit for
But just
everybody.
take the terms that everyone's cool with.
Yeah,
Just take the terms that all the other tracks are cool with. Everyone's making money, and I spoke to one track, 30% up on last year. So 2023, 30% up on 2022. That's a big jump. And then they also said that pre-sales for this event, they're up 20% on last year. So that's 50% over 2022. Southwick this weekend are going to have their biggest race in their history.
Right.
Like, you guys are fucking cooking it if there's no national there or no. You know what I mean? Because it's like you've done so much to build this sport and you've done so much to get it to this point where it's at. And like business is ugly and business at times can be not the best and moral. Like, hey, I had things recently with people in business that it wasn't cool. And I had to fucking suck it up, Business is a dirty game
Yeah, it
at
is.
times, But I think we just need to keep sight of. Davey told me he said Motocross of Nations next year at Glen Helen to you.
Well, I wish. That's my dream.
Did he say that to you though?
No,
Because
he hasn't said
I
it.
heard that.
I
heard
I've
it's an
heard
option.
rumors. I've heard rumors, but you know what? I've done a lot of races, and that's one I would love to do.
Well, he told me yesterday that Motocross of Nations 2025 could be coming to America and it could be at Glen Helen.
That would be a dream come true for me. I don't know about him, but
yeah.
Gives me fucking goosebumps, bro. Literally, look at my skin. 2025 Motocross of Nations
Yeah.
at Glen Helen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess everything you're saying, I want to say yes, but the straw. I don't hear anything coming out of Davy Coombs.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm not Davey. I'm not representing.
No, I know.
The ball goes back in his court.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that if you say like I want to make it happen, well, let's bring it back. Let's do it. I think at least then there's the table, and you don't have to leave town, but you just can't go on the fucking podium at the end of the race. Like you know.
But the part
I'm
we
trying to
don't-
make a joke.
I know. I know.
to.
But you
You gotta
can't-
know what I'm
you can't-
saying.
I know what you're saying, and I have to. But you can lie to me once, but you can't lie to me too over. And that's the part that
Yeah.
I'm old school enough, and I got to take your word at it. If I give you something here, and you say I'll give you something over here, and you don't deliver, and I call you on it, and you still don't deliver.
I get it. I'm just the live TV, the podium, me like Tomac. Like
I know, and
There's
Tomac was so cool. He was so cool about it. I said,
he does. He mentions it to me every once in a while. He comes in, he goes, "Oh, is the podium? Am I bed here?"
right.
Like,
so. My point is, we all fucking want it back.
I
Yeah,
know.
and
And-
I do too. I want it back.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Everybody in the industry wants it, and
And whatever you need from me, if I need to make phone calls, if I need to, if I want me to be in the fucking room acting as motocross and sorting it, would be great. And if I'm an 80-year-old dude that has the best motocross track in the world,
Yeah.
I don't want to fucking die before I see that shit again.
Okay.
Like,
Well, that's boiling. You're absolutely right. But I want it to grow. I want motocross to grow.
Yeah.
And
And you've done so much to make it grow, man. Don't miss out on the best period of it. Don't miss out on the promised land.
Yeah.
You guys were part of building it, And you put so much effort into this shit. Like, honestly,
yeah.
you put so much in. Like,
Yeah.
you deserve it.
well, yeah.
You
Let's
know?
see. Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, hey, thanks so much, guys.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you guys.
I
and-
appreciate your time and
Yes, and your input was very, very, very great. Thank
yeah.
you.
Well, yeah, I hope I wasn't too hard on.
No,
The
no.
times or-
Yeah, I want
I try not to be a journalist, but I had to like do some journalistic shit
Exactly.
this time. I try
Exactly.
to avoid that tag so I can just carry on as much as I want. But I had to try and like do some due diligence this time.
to, right.
But I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
both being here. And just personally, thank you for having that place that we can go. Thank you for adding to some of the most memorable times I've ever had on a bike. Thanks for being there into the future. The commitment, the dusty, windy, cold, shitty days that
Yeah,
you've
you
had
can
this.
come back. We'll have plenty more hot ones right now.
Yeah. So, all right. Don't forget, sign-ups for the World Vets are going right now. The 40th year of the World Vets. Day in the Dirt will be there Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving
weekend. Do you have any other events that we should talk about?
Well, I always have Saturday motocross, so check
Yep,
that
REM
out.
Saturdays.
Anytime you guys want to just come
What
out.
about a picture? We should do a press
Yeah,
release.
We get a
Hey,
picture.
buddy, you want to do a picture?
Yeah, 100%. Well, that's it. I think we.
Well, let's do a picture of us on the.
Yeah.
All right.
I think we may have a national back at Glen Helen. So
All right.
we're in the works.
We're
in
in
the
the
works.
works. All right, thank you.
I actually have another camera that if you wanted to, I could. All right, I'll just stop there. Thank you guys. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it much.
That was great.
Thank you,
Thank you
Laurie.
very much.
I'll see you out at the track for sure.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.